Be sure your phones are on silent, if you would. Before I begin with my remarks, I want to ask POA Secretary Jim Fletcher. Jim, do we have a quorum?
Mr. President, we do have a quorum.
I declare this meeting open and an official meeting of the White Bluff Property Owners Association. What a year we have experienced. This meeting, which I thought would never actually happen, marks the fourth time that I've stood before you, our property owners, as president of the White Bluff Property Owners Association. Even with the trials, the challenges, and the tangible effects brought on by COVID-19, your board, who's sitting up here, the committees of this association, many of you there, and our wonderful and dedicated employees have diligently continued the business of the association. Before I continue with my remarks, I want to give tribute to two individuals who are no longer with us, but who left behind an incredible legacy of accomplishment in their volunteer positions in the POA. Mike Bell served as chairman of the Marina Committee. He was a natural leader whose organizational skills guided this vital committee in laying out a blueprint of both the immediate and future marina needs. Those of you who knew Mike were blessed to know a man of honor, a man who served his country and our community, a loving husband and a family man, a genuine friend, and someone who was a pure joy to be around. White Bluff is and will be better off because of Mike Bell. Roy Miller was just a scant 7 months into his second term as director of this association when his remarkable life was cut short due to a tragic automobile accident. Roy was a Navy man through and through and was an incredible contributor to this board and to this association. He left a distinctively rational and logical rendering to every issue that the board faced. But most indicative of what he gave was his willingness to actually volunteer for projects that went publicly unnoticed, but were absolutely vital to the successes of your board. One example is the significant amount of time he gave to preparing a complete, documented list of every tangible asset acquired by the POA from Double Diamond. Not the obvious ones like the golf courses or the condos or the log cabins, but things like maintenance equipment, tools, machinery, vehicles. He then assessed the condition of each of these and chronicled all of this work. This gargantuan effort was invaluable as the board has continued its arduous task of completing our 7-step plan. Roy never sought public attention or recognition, but took pride in a job well done. Mike Bell and Roy Miller should be examples to all of our property owners that positive actions build a community, while negative words and actions try to tear it down. Mike Bell and Roy Miller chose to give their time and their talents to this community, while some choose to give nothing but negative and misguided comments, critical to and about those that they don't agree with singular issues of theirs. Or said another way, Mike Bell and Roy Miller were builders of White Bluff, while a few vocalized negatively, while building or contributing absolutely nothing. So much has happened in the short 4-year time frame, and even more in the past year and a half. For those who've joined our community at some time within the last 4 years, I suggest very strongly that you go back in time and see just what we have been able to accomplish with what at times seemed like insurmountable barriers. When I say we, I'm referring to this totally dedicated board, our totally dedicated employees, and the phenomenal, tangible efforts of dozens and dozens of property owners. It was these dozens of property owners who only 2 years ago, in the summer of 2018, gave so unselfishly to cut down 4-foot-high thistles in the fairways and sand traps, who took their mowers out in 100-degree weather on mow day, who organized relief teams that took them water, who used sharpshooters and dug up countless dead plants and shrubs at the new course entrance, the new course complex, and the old course complex, who worked their butts off power washing, repairing the wood structure, and clearing away excessive growth around the old course pavilion, who initiated the fundraising efforts to establish a perpetual fund for the maintenance of the Danny Morrow Pavilion. Thank you, Ben's Golf Association. Who gave their talent to create a permanent sign acknowledging the name and a permanent plaque of dedication to our dear friend Danny Morrow. Thanks Harry Sauerkamp, Mike Mood, and Reuben Reyes. Whitney-based Mighty Coat, and more specifically White Bluff residents Troy Stevens and Rodney Webb, who donated the beautiful and functional tables. Those who spent days scrubbing, painting, arranging furnishings and furniture in the old course 19th hole. Thank you, Jerry and Candy Barnett, Kathy and Martin Coons, and Kathy and Jack Mays. Those who spent 2 days digging countless holes at both course complexes and planting all the new landscaping that you saw last year for the first time. To our contractors and subcontractors who service this area, who were fantastically cooperative in their responsiveness, and some of whom gave much needed discounts. I also want to thank specifically and acknowledge 2 board members sitting up here today. The first is way down there at the end. He's got his SMU shirt on today. Good, I'm just kidding. He's teasing you, little guy, teasing you guy. Mark Hepworth, you'll hear from Mark later in his capacity as board liaison for the Marina Committee. But I want to recognize him and his wife, Deborah. Is Deborah here today? She's not, okay. For stepping forward and volunteering to head up a massive effort to power wash and stain the lighthouse deck, bar deck. They organized a committee of volunteers who not only helped them with this massive amount of staining, and if you, next time you're over there, take a look at how many rails there are, and it'll give you an idea of how big a job this was. But they also cut back brush and trimmed trees to the tune of well over 10 trailer loads of trash. Our beautiful lake is now totally visible thanks to Mark, Deborah, and their volunteers. But they didn't stop there. Miss Deborah, we're here because I want everybody to know that she almost single-handedly painted the entire exterior of a large storage facility adjacent to the conference center and playground. Their efforts literally saved our association thousands of dollars. And Mark, please stand, and let's give him, Mark and Deborah, a hand. Now the guy sitting next to him, I now want to acknowledge retiring board member Jay Elder. This will be Jay's last meeting, and his seat will be filled in today's election for an upcoming 3-year term, cut short by the 4 months of the delay in this meeting. Jay hit the ground running when he was appointed board liaison for the golf committee. During the somewhat contentious acquisition negotiations with Double Diamond, Jay gave us invaluable input. But his star shined most brightly when he supervised the immense task of overseeing the complete rebuilding of 36 greens, 2 putting greens, and innumerable sand traps and bunkers. He was instrumental in making constructive recommendations as how to best keep the work progressing at a good pace while preserving what had been done by restricting property owners and guests access to the 2 golf courses. Jay worked closely with the golf committee both before and after acquisition. After the acquisition documents were signed, we entered a very extensive due diligence period, and numerous problems, surprisingly so, were encountered with survey issues with the courses and the cart paths. Cannot tell you how many times that Jay would pick me up in his golf cart, and we would spend incalculable time driving the problem areas and coming up with workable solutions and alternatives that helped get the deal done 2 years ago. In addition, Jay serves on a 3-person board committee that reviews delinquency waivers and payment plans. I could always count on Jay to respond with spontaneity and common sense in everything that he did. Perhaps the best thing any of us who have played golf with him are thankful for is during his tenure on the board, he miraculously turned his Charles Barkley golf swing into an absolute thing of beauty. Jay, please stand and accept our thanks for a job. I now want to make something absolutely clear. White Bluff is a golf resort. Whether you play golf or not, whether you did or did not do your research prior to buying property here, the fact remains that this is a golf resort. Yes, we have other enticing amenities, but the singular, most important asset that we have is 2 championship golf courses. It is the high caliber golf that has a positive effect on property prices. It is the high caliber golf that attracts golfers and families to our resort, visitors who have money to spend, visitors who will buy property and build homes and pay maintenance fees to the POA, visitors who will support our amenities, new property owners and homeowners who will become an integral part of our community and add fresh ideas and energy and involvement. I bring this up because there are a few property owners who question the board's decision to A, resurrect the golf courses, and B, allocate the money necessary to maintain the courses. I'll address these briefly but factually. It would have been an absolute travesty and disaster to have not brought our courses back to the pristine state that they are in. The naysayers need to think long and hard about the immediate and irreversible effect of what 2 overgrown, neglected courses would have had on our property values. Property values would have pummeled, and they would never have recovered. Everyone should be aware, very importantly, that in actuality, this board paid for the resurrection of the courses with money that we saved by refusing to pay for maintaining the golf courses while we were in litigation with Double Down. That's where the money came from. I've often said that the future is a series of falling dominoes. One thing must happen before the effect of what happens is felt. We have 2 gyms in our magnet that are magnets for golf groups, weekend getaways, group sales efforts, and potential buyers of property. The next domino that will fall is an increased number of lodging units. We then can house more visitors to our resort who will spend more money and who will offset expenses associated with maintaining the courses. Said a different way, the future of White Bluff is tied to a number of interrelated issues that this board meticulously considers in its work. Next, I want to address ignorance. And no, ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is defined as not having an awareness, of facts. Not having an awareness of facts. And making public statements without knowledge of the actual facts surrounding any issue is not only ignorant, but it can be extremely damaging. Let me give you a classic example of an actual series of statements put on social media. Now, the facts that are associated with these ignorant statements are actually meant to seriously give you very valuable information about the operations of this board. Ignorant statement number 1. There is a perceived lack of financial planning by this board. Well, fact. You'll hear more details when POA Treasurer Jeff Williams gives you his financial report, but this board has spent literally dozens of hours in intense work sessions working on the 2020 operational budget. Those who remember the facts will remember that when this budget was presented and passed in an open board meeting, we fully disclosed that we would have an operating budget deficit at the end of 2020. What you will learn today is that because of financial planning, the revised budget, which we hammered out under the leadership of Jeff Williams, will not have a deficit. We carried our financial planning to the next critical task and have tackled capital expenditures and creating a capital expense budget for the first time in over 25 years. We have detailed immediate capital expenditure needs. We have prioritized those needs, and we've addressed numerous additional capital expenditures. You'll hear much more about these efforts, but suffice it to say that this board, without any doubt, meticulously plans for the financial future of White Bluff. Ignorant statement number 2. The POA will miss a large debt payment in early 2021, and White Bluff will go bankrupt. Facts. There is no large debt payment due in 2021. The terms of our acquisition agreement stated that we would pay interest only on our debt to Double Diamond for the first 2 years. Beginning the third year, which starts October the 1st, 2020, we began paying interest and principal based on a 20-year amortization schedule. At the end of 10 years, there's a balloon payment for the balance owed. You should be aware also that of some additional facts. We have consistently stayed a minimum of 1 month ahead in our payments to Double Diamond. And we have over $1 million set aside in reserve, and we have no debt except what we owe Double Diamond. Ignorant statement number 3. The POA was established by the Double Diamond lawsuits. Fact. POA was established in 1990. Our bylaws and our governing documents. Ignorant statement number 4. POA general manager was hired because he was a 20-year employee of one of our management companies, Arcus. Fact. Bill Finney was White Bluff general manager 20 years ago when Mary Tully and I were here, and he worked for Double Diamond, and that's when we built our house in 1999. We were sorry to see him and Brenda leave for another opportunity in Oklahoma, but the board was fortunate to be able to bring him back, and those who were here when he was previously general manager know of his talents, his dedication, and his love for White Bluff. He's technically an employee of Arcus, as are all White Bluff employees, but his only employment with Arcus has been since he was hired by the POA. Ignorant statement number 5. Proper due diligence was probably not followed when the POA hired the management companies. The exact opposite is the case. When we broke away from Double Diamond controlling our finances, we sent requests for proposals out to well over a half a dozen management companies. All respondees were given the opportunity to make a presentation to the board in an open meeting. In an unparalleled effort at transparency, I allowed direct questions to be posed by property owners in attendance. We made the decision to sign a contract with First Service Residential, FSR. It became obvious after we acquired the amenities from Double Diamond that FSR was incapable of assisting us in the managing of the hospitality and amenities that we now own. We duplicated the previous search procedure, had several meetings, and contracted with Arcus and Associates. Ignorant statement number 6. Were there competitive bids received before granting the contract to the remodeling of Mulligan's to Mrs. Critcher? Well, the fact is my wife's last name is Critcher, not Critcher. And the answer is no, there were no competitive bids. I am certain that the vast majority of property owners who have actually taken the time to read previous communications are more than well aware that she did not charge the POA $1 for her efforts in remodeling Mulligan's. There were no contractor fees on any of the work done by the subs, and her design efforts were also done at no charge. If this had been bid out, the contractor fees would probably have exceeded $100,000. Her fees were $0. Additionally, as you heard last year, neither she nor Sherry Williams received any compensation whatsoever from their combined efforts in renovating the condos and the log cabins. Ignorant statement number 7. The only way to increase dues is by a vote. Fact, property owners do not pay dues. Property owners pay maintenance fees. It is true that maintenance fees can only be increased by a vote. However, the distinct insinuation in ignorant statement number 7 is that any increase must be approved by a vote of property owners. This is simply not the case. State statutes require that any discussion about any vote on an increase in maintenance fees or special assessments must be done in an open meeting of the board of directors in which the directors receive input from interested property owners. The meeting is subject to a standard 30-day notification, and Section 4 of the POA bylaws states, quote, "The board of directors shall have the following additional rights, powers, and duties," unquote. Section 4C specifically states, quote, "To increase, decrease, amend, or modify the maintenance fee schedule applicable to each and all lots, the time and method of collection, and any and all matters and aspects of any kind or character whatsoever arising out of or related to the maintenance fees," unquote. The governing documents provide the same procedure relative to special assessments. Now, I'd like to tell you a little story that will be a prelude to my next comments. An old man and a boy and a donkey were going to town. The boy rode on the donkey and the old man walked alongside. Well, as they went along, they passed some people who remarked, "Oh, what a shame. An old man is walking and that boy is riding." Well, the man and the boy thought maybe the critics were right. So they changed positions. Later, they passed some people who remarked, "Oh, what a shame. He makes that little boy walk." Well, so they decided they'd both walk. Well, soon they passed some more people who remarked, "Boy, they're really stupid to walk when they have an absolutely decent donkey to ride." So they both decided to ride the donkey. Well, then they passed some people who shamed them by saying, "How awful to see such a load on that poor donkey." Well, the boy and the man figured they were probably right, so they decided to carry the donkey. As they crossed the bridge over the river, they lost grip on the donkey fell in the river and drowned. Now, the moral of the story is, if you try to please everyone, you might as well kiss your ass goodbye. This board, I'll probably get a few emails on that one. Okay. This board receives a lot of well-intentioned suggestions and comments. We get some that fall outside of well-intentioned. Most vocal of these suggestions and comments generally fall into one of two categories: a feeling of personal entitlement or a singular issue that affects you directly. In either case, we as your board simply cannot and will not take the posture of pleasing everyone. It is financially imprudent. Feelings of personal entitlement and singular issues are singular in dimension and do not take into consideration the big picture of the cause and effect of every decision that we make. Singular issues are issues that are asked to be made in a vacuum. The board does not have that luxury. We are charged with making decisions for the welfare of over 6,000 property owners, and we will continue to do just that. Delinquencies. Delinquencies remain a challenge, but a challenge that we are addressing. We inherited over $5 million of uncollected maintenance fees from when Double Diamond was managing POA Financial Affairs. On the recommendation of our CPA firm, Timothy DeVolt and Company, Sam, Timothy's right over here. By the way, they're conducting today's election for directors. We wrote off a significant amount of this as uncollectible. 1099s were sent to every property owner who was affected by this, and they had to include this amount in their taxable income. After this unpleasant but necessary financial decision, we seriously cranked up the process of collection. Last month alone, we filed liens on over 65 properties in a single day. Last month alone, we had 75 property owners with delinquencies. Those still delinquent on August the 31st were mailed a demand letter on September the 1st that also informed them that they would no longer have access to any White Bluff amenity until they were current. As of today, that number is 46 homeowners that are delinquent on paying their maintenance fees. These delinquencies of those 46 total $138,489. These homeowners, say this very seriously, should be aware that we will take every legal measure available to us to collect the fees that are owed to the POA, inclusive of foreclosure. The board established, on another note, a special committee to try and work out payment plans for delinquent property owners. I personally receive on the average 2 to 3 requests per day. And in the vast majority of the cases, we're able to put together a plan that will help the property owner get current in a reasonable amount of time and simultaneously bring real dollars into the POA. A board committee composed of Jay Elder. Jay, you owe me one more email I sent this morning. Jay Elder, Marshall Snyder down here at the end, and John Bass review every proposal for every request, and each of these responds accordingly. At the present time, we have almost 50 payment plans established, representing well over $100,000 in delinquencies. Our tangible actions of credit reporting, credit bureau reporting, filing of liens, and possible foreclosure are having their effects as delinquent property owners are now fully aware that we're serious about this. Things were too lax for too long. Another area of being too lax for too long is rules compliance. Everyone wants rules to be obeyed unless it's a rule that affects them. I will be the first to admit that some of the rules are not good rules and they need to be changed. There's a domino or two that needs to fall, but when they do, we're confident that we can get declarancy and for once make our own rules that are fair and the rules that are equitable. But in the meantime, the rules must be obeyed. I will be proposing to the board as we begin the budgeting process for 2021 that we employ a full-time compliance officer whose only duty is to secure property owner compliance with rules. We have way too much at stake with the anticipated numbers of potential new property owners and guests. Let me be perfectly blunt. White Bluff must be a shining example of a singular mind when it comes to appearance. There will be no tolerance in regards to landscaping requirements and maintenance, boats and trailers parked where they should not be parked, and improperly maintaining homes. And most importantly, enforcement will be uniform. COVID-19 has affected us all. As you well know, this meeting was postponed for 4 months. Town hall meetings cannot be held. We cannot enjoy inside dining yet at Mulligan's. Socialization is limited. Masks hide smiles, and tempers are short. But this has not stopped the work of your board. We hold regular workshops to address the myriad of operational details on our plates, not the least of which are the 4 properties included in the request for proposal that will be sent to potential developer partners. The board hired a professional commercial real estate appraiser to appraise the hotel, the Lighthouse Restaurant, conference center, and the fitness center, spa, and salon. Also the land between these, the hotel and the restaurant, and all of the parking areas. I asked for volunteers to serve on the RFP committee. This committee was chaired by Steve Hunt, and it was charged with developing the RFP. The draft was presented to the board, and then COVID reared its ugly head. There's a definite interest beginning to surface as I have been personally contacted by 3 different entities even before the RFP is sent out. I anticipate having the final version ready to send out within the next 2 weeks. Our vision of White Bluff is detailed in this document. If there's anything positive about COVID, is that people are realizing that places like White Bluff can be a temporary or a permanent sanctuary from the COVIDs that will come in the future, but also the absolute insanity of urban living. We've already seen the effect on White Bluff real estate. There is more activity in the real estate market than there has ever been since the beginning of White Bluff in 1990. There are virtually no homes for sale. Well over 30 lots were sold last month. Spec houses are being built at an all-time high, as well as custom homes. The pent-up demand in the DFW area will send droves of people to our resort. Again, people who will play golf, enjoy the amenities, buy property, and build homes. We are on the verge of not only making White Bluff great again, but making White Bluff the destination for the Metroplex and beyond. Our property owners need to totally understand that we cannot survive, much less flourish, being dependent on our existing community. The reality is we have somewhat mature demographics, and the support of our amenities by the community is limited at best. If we are going to open additional amenities like the lighthouse, it cannot be done with the historical limited support of the existing community. The lighthouse was open 2 nights a week and a few times for Sunday brunch and special occasions like Easter, Mother's Day, and Thanksgiving in the 21 years that we've had a home in White Bluff. The only time it was well patronized was when we had large outside golf groups, or when we had group sales, non-existent, well over 10 years, or when Double Diamond was still actively selling lots and bringing prospective lot purchasers in to stay at Double Diamond Lodging and facilities and dine on Double Diamond's nickel. I know of the virtual limited support of the local community because we ate there virtually every Friday night. And there were usually more wait staff than patrons actually eating. Friday happy hour would attract a significant number of patrons. They would mostly disappear as soon as half-price drinks were no longer available. And food was seldom ordered. To suggest that the lighthouse should be open instead of Mulligan's because it has greater seating capacity is suggested without a business understanding of the simple fact that Mulligan's has a built-in clientele of golfers because of its location. The lighthouse does not. I'm going to say it one more time. We absolutely must attract large numbers of people from outside the existing community. People who have money and are willing to spend it, and also hopefully buy property and build homes. Some will not like to hear this, as they want a relatively closed little community. Guys, this simply will not work. We must grow, we must expand, we must attract groups, we must attract younger families, and this starts with marketing our resort. The board approved the development of a professionally created website that will market what we have to offer. A professional photographer has taken numerous pictures, videos, and drone shots that will be used. At this point, Arcus has developed a White Bluff website, but we believe that it's imperative that we control the content and direction going forward. I just received an email yesterday from the website developers indicating that the first mock-up should be ready within 2 weeks. This is one of several major steps in our planning, and it is being integrated with a careful designed, comprehensive plan to market this resort. My next comment briefly on board transparency. Following my election as POA president, the first thing that I did was implement a communication campaign. We established a POA website, which we've never had before, that includes every email blast that we've sent out, current updates on any and all litigation, complete listing of our governing documents, all of our financial statements, full contact information for each of these board members, as well as management, and a host of valuable information and links like the complete covenants and rules for each White Bluff section, and the ACC building packet, and how to sign up for email blast. I'll remind you that you must opt in to receive emails, and it can be done right there on the POA website. The second thing I did was for the board to host a town hall meeting called Ask the GM. At that time, virtually no one knew the structure of the complex operational aspects of the POA. Then General Manager Fred Molson, who's sitting over here, was gracious enough to answer every question submitted to him by property owners in writing, and then answered any additional questions in an open forum. This board has consistently sent informational email blasts, keeping all property owners informed of what is happening in this community. There are almost 500 emails posted on the website under the link News. I know because I wrote 99% of them. We have a very careful procedure, please listen to this, before anything goes out to our property owners. The email draft, original draft, is submitted to this board. They have an opportunity to edit the content for clarity. Then it must be passed unanimously via email before the email goes out. This is important to understand. Information is disseminated as quickly as possible, but there is a procedure. A procedure that can take a few days before an email blast can actually be sent out. Now, a few critics have suggested on the social media platform Nextdoor that we did not communicate on a timely basis, for example, as to why we made the decision we did with regards to the release of funds to the volunteer fire department for a third brush truck. That's simply not true, but it's indicative of a misunderstanding of proper procedure. You should also remember that another important change implemented was the way that we have open board meetings and how they're conducted. Property owners by state law could always address agenda items in an open meeting. For 5 years now, you have had the opportunity, in addition to addressing agenda items, to address any issue that you wanted to talk about or ask any question you wanted to ask to any board member in an open forum session at every board meeting. We also had several town hall meetings, and as soon as COVID is behind us, we'll schedule the next one. I've already invited the representatives of our new water and sewage company to be there, and the board will be totally open to answering any and all questions posed to us about any subject. These comments about transparency are in no way defensive comments. They're meant to be a reminder of what this board has actually done to assure you, our property owners, are constantly and consistently informed of what we are doing in our capacity of representing you. One last word. If you have a question, a comment, or a criticism, or a suggestion, you should feel free to contact me or any board member directly. Nextdoor is not the place to vent or make comments based on a misunderstanding of facts. Posts on Nextdoor will not be responded to by board members or by management. However, every board member is more than happy to answer any question posed to them verbally or by email. One last thing about Nextdoor, and I've said this repeatedly. Nothing is ever resolved on Nextdoor. I ask each person who uses this public social forum to ask themselves these questions before you post something negative. Are you posting to create dissension? Are you posting with an understanding of the facts? Or are you posting just to see your name in print? There's way too much dissension and negativity in our country right now. And we do not need dissension and negativity in our community. If you want to get clarity, ask a board member directly or seek information from our wonderful POA staff. I want to return to a comment I made earlier. Your board does not work in a vacuum. This is especially true when it comes to capital expenses. We've spent well over a dozen hours, Treasurer Jeff Williams, many more than that, assessing and prioritizing capital expense items. This assessment and prioritization, again, was not done in a vacuum. We meticulously discussed, well, if we choose to do A, what are the ramifications when looking at B or C or D? Let me say it once again. We absolutely must look at the cause and effect of every decision and every action that we take. We have developed what we call a must-do of absolute priorities. This list includes two critical needs relative to our golf courses. We've got to replace a bridge that is structurally unsound We've got to take down a tree that is split and could seriously hurt, if not kill someone if it fell. These are both obvious safety measures. But in addition to these, we absolutely must address the exterior repair and painting of the conference center, the Lighthouse Restaurant and Bar, and the fitness center spa salon complex. These structures must be preserved whether they're renovated and used by a potential development partner or renovated and run by the POA. On this same note, if there's anything positive about COVID-19, it was that we could defer replacing and reworking the air conditioning at the conference center. We actually approved the replacement of the air system at the conference center many months ago. But when COVID hit, we chose not to spend the money until it was necessary. With the exterior repairs, we anticipate, and with proper climate control systems in place, we will have a very functional meeting facility going forward, whether for town hall meetings, open board meetings, large community functions, or for rental opportunities. Even as I speak today, we are in the throes of addressing other major expenditures, not the least of which is paying off the indebtedness to Double Diamond as soon as possible. The other major capital expenses are obvious: lodging, Lighthouse Restaurant and Bar, the marina, the fitness center complex, a much-needed new lake pump system, which you'll hear more about later from Marshall Smatter, the RV parks, the campgrounds, and of course, our roads. Some may look at the above as an overloaded plate at a boarding house lunch. Didn't laugh at that, you're not old enough. Your board looks at the above as an opportunity to take this resort to the next level of excellence. And we are willing to continue in our efforts to accomplish what absolutely must be done with total fiscal responsibility and meticulous planning not done in a vacuum. We're constantly seeking ways to provide more functional amenities with the least amount of expenditure of POA funds. As we explore these methodologies, we remain steadfast in making decisions that will enhance White Bluff, while simultaneously assuring that the future success of White Bluff is protected. One example of these ancillary efforts is the Lighthouse Bar and Deck. Several months ago, board member Joe Manders volunteered to prepare a feasibility study on the ramifications of having the POA open the bar and the deck. The results of his study were presented to the board as well as communicated to all property owners. However, we did not stop in our efforts to try and come up with an alternative to POA funding and PO operations of the bar. I am cautiously, very, very cautiously, relating to you that I've had two very productive meetings with a third-party group, and that I have received a term sheet that details the intricacies of establishing a contract for opening that facility. I received the term sheet Thursday night and immediately forwarded it to board member Joe Manders and General Manager Bill Finney. The three of us will begin a review of the terms and will respond on a very timely basis. We're cautiously optimistic that we can hammer out an agreement that is mutually beneficial to all parties involved, including our property owners. Once we've come to a mutual understanding, the finalized term sheet will be presented to the board for discussion and approval in an open meeting. This effort has been moved to the top of a long list of anticipated enhancements. In conclusion, we're poised for greatness. Greatness that can be achieved through mutual cooperation, continued property owner involvement, laying aside past differences, continued transparency, patience as the process of fiscal responsibility takes place, and with the elimination of pettiness from a dissident few. The train to White Bluff greatness has pulled out of the station, and it's gaining momentum with every day that passes. Every domino that falls, every positive and proactive action, every open and civil discussion, every constructive suggestion, every minute of personal involvement in every tangible action that represents the soul of White Bluff will carry the train at a faster and faster speed to the full realization of our goals. White Bluff has an unparalleled spirit that will be infectious when others see and experience it. Yes, we are building it, and yes, they will come, and they will be welcomed, because you, each and every one of you, are the very fabric and the essence of the foundation for greatness. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Jim Fletcher. I'm Secretary of the Board of Directors. We are now ready to begin the election process. Let me give you a briefing. We have 3 board positions open to be filled today. We have a total of 5 candidates for those positions. You can only vote for up to 3 if you've not already cast your ballot. If you vote for more than 3, your ballot will be invalidated. So keep in mind, 3 positions to be filled. You can vote for up to 3 candidates. I'm going to give each candidate an opportunity to make a brief 3-minute statement regarding their vision, whatever they feel is appropriate to share with the White Bluff property owners. I'm going to start in reverse order of the alphabet, and so I will first ask Linda Turner to come up and make her statement. Whatever you would like.
Hello, I'm Linda Turner, and
There you go.
I would like to be on the POA board because I love God very much, and I feel that it's very important that I come and do my civic duty for the people that I love. I love my neighbors, I love White Bluff, and I am so glad that I am here. And I'm asking your vote because I am trustworthy, and I am a listener, and I believe that I will be a great benefit to the board. And I just hope that you will vote for me. And I have never asked for a vote before in my life. I've never run for any kind of office, but I just think it's the right thing to do. And I feel like God has called me to serve and to give me the words that I should speak to you today. And I just thank everyone for coming. And if you have not voted for me, I really hope you will. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Jerry Mayer. Jerry? My apologies, Meyer.
Thank you. Myself, my wife, and my 2 sons and 2 daughter-in-laws have fought that issue all their entire life. It's Meyer, not Mayor. I appreciate this opportunity. In the years that my wife and I have lived down here, my wife's Linda, she's right over there, we've got to know quite a few people, not everyone, and so this is a great opportunity here. A little bit about myself, my background. It was on the website, but I'll just be brief about it. I spent 36 years in corporate America with JCPenney, moving around 5 different times. Generally always in the logistics area, managing organizations that purchase, manage, work with buyers, sellers, problem solving, conflict resolution. But the biggest thing there I want to believe is about developing people skills. After leaving Penny's in 05, an early buyout luckily, I decided I was too young to retire, so I consulted, talk about people skills there. I mean, walking into a company where you're really probably not welcomed by the people you're working with, only just senior management. I did that for about 3 years, and then the economy slowed down, and I left there. And then my son, who has his own business, asked me to come and work for him. And 12 years later, I'm still working with my youngest son. You add all those years up, it's about time that this trail ends, and I think it'll be pretty soon I'm going to retire. A little bit about our experience down here at White Bluff. We built the house back 13 years ago, and we built it as a family lake house. For our sons, I have 2 sons, both live in Dallas, about 2 miles apart, 4 grandkids. And for the first 10 years, we used it as a weekend lake house. A lot of great memories, but we usually came down here with family and friends, so we didn't extend ourselves to the community. But then 3 years ago, my wife finally made the monumental decision that she would move down here with me full time. And we've just really enjoyed the community. We got involved in the chapel. My wife Linda has gotten involved with the ladies golf group. She's got a little bit of rehab issue going on right now. I learned that there's a guys golf game every day of the week. Of course, still working, I can't quite do that. Pickleball, enjoy that. Actually, I was the one that mentioned to Leonard about 3 years ago that'd be a great idea to convert some of the tennis courts into pickleball courts, and I think it's become very popular. The lake, our 4 grandkids, they've learned to ski on the lake, they've learned to play golf. On the golf course, they learned to drive the golf cart down here. That's a big word.
SJL.
Yeah. But the biggest thing we found down here is the people, the friends that we have made, and how open everybody has been. It's just been a great place to live. I'll tell you a little bit about my Highland initiative. I'm the president of the Highlands POA. We have our own POA there. 2 years ago, Tommy Edgar, Mike Pollard, and myself, with the approval of the homeowners administrator, we negotiated and acquired our amenities, a pool, a pavilion, and the front gate from Double Diamond. Well, we got the same thing that you all got. So we spent last year spending quite a bit of money and quite a bit of effort to refurbishing all that. You're probably wondering where I'm going with this, but we face a lot of the same issues. We don't have $5 million in delinquency fees, we've got $71,000. But put that in relationship where our fees are only $230 a year. Proxies, we're having our annual meeting this afternoon. We have, for the last 2 weeks, scrambled to get 75 proxies out of 280 lots. So it's a lot of the same issues. I guess where I try to go is, I've cut my teeth on board operations in a much smaller organization, but I've come to learn the challenges that the boards do face. As far as White Bluff, I truly believe that the future is now. We are living it right now. With what Leonard just said about the amenities, the golf courses, the activity in the lot sale, the activity in the home building, there is a pent-up demand. I'm a firm believer of that, and I think that we are living it right now. My initiative as a board member, opening more of the amenities, the roads. I think we've talked about the roads way too long, and very little has been done. And financial stability, and anything that will enhance the quality of life of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Our next candidate is Cassie Fleming.
I know. First off, I want to thank every one of the board members for the wonderful jobs and the hours, thankless hours, aggravating hours when they have to deal with comments and that sort of thing that they put up with. I know it's not an easy job, and I do appreciate everything they've said. And Leonard, actually, for once, I agree with everything in your opening comments. I didn't find anything to fault, you know. I would appreciate your vote if for no other reason than to have a different perspective on the board, possibly. I'm not a businessman in more ways than one, but I'm not a businessman. I taught junior high. I'm used to dealing with junior high personalities.
That's the record.
But I think it's also time to have a different voice on the board and everything. I appreciate all the hard work they've done because I know they've dedicated themselves to these positions. I'd also like, and this one may get me run out of here, which, you know, it won't be the first time I've ever been chased out of anywhere. I encourage everyone to vote their own vote. When the board can collect proxies in the quantity that they can collect proxies, there's not going to be a change. They vote for who they want. That's not a criticism, it's a statement of fact. But the fact is, I encourage everybody to vote their conscience, vote their own vote. If you want to vote for me, I'd love to be on the board. If you don't, that's not going to hurt my feelings. It's not going to be the first time I haven't been elected to something, nor will it be the last. But thank you very much. I, like everybody else, want White Bluff to be as good as it possibly can, to be the best that it can. And Lord knows this is the prettiest part of Texas right now, and I've lived all over it, so I know. This is great. But thank you for considering me. Thanks for coming out today.
Our next candidate is Mike Ellis.
Good morning, I'm Mike Ellis. I am seeking my second term on the board. My wife Cindy and I have lived here 5 years. And it took us all of 2 months to realize this is where we wanted to retire. Knowing that, I actively tried to pursue an opportunity to be elected at 3 years ago. I was fortunate enough to be able to serve. I do look forward to 3 more years because, as Leslie pointed out, we've done a lot. We do have a roadmap. And I'm very, very willing to assist and help in the endeavor to us to get to that end point. I have a history in healthcare administration, healthcare management. I believe my skills in looking at finances, prioritizing best return on your investment will be vital in the 3 years to come. So I very much appreciate your support for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Our fifth candidate is John Bass.
Thank you, Jim. My name's John Bass. I live at 1148 Overlook Drive, you know, out that way. Anyway, about 6.5 years ago, I was approached, along with several other property owners and homeowners here, to be a part of the White Bluff POA board. And I had no clue what I was getting myself into. I did have a little bit of knowledge of that there was some lawsuits and that sort of thing going on by some property owners, but I really had no clue. The only community involvement that I had at that point, I was a part of a water rate committee in 2008, of which there was a lot smarter people on that committee than me. I had no knowledge of the inner workings of that sort of thing. My basic skill came out that I was a good fundraiser. And at that time, we had a barbecue dinner in my big garage just about every weekend, begging people for money. So I learned to do that, and I seem to be fairly good at that, and we've proven that now twice now. But neither here nor there, we had a good result of that water committee. The utility at the time was asking for a 48% rate increase, and we knocked it down to about 8 to 10%. If memory serves me, we could have done better, but we simply just ran out of money and ran out of barbecue, as far as that's concerned. But I remember the first consequential vote that I had to take on the board was a serious vote. And it was a vote to eliminate the food and beverage credit. Quite frankly, for those of you who are homeowners, if you were here then and you remember that, you loved it. I did. You know, the deal is you paid $300 a year and you got $400 worth of credit at the restaurants and the golf courses and what have you. I thought it was a great deal for us. But it was an issue in a lawsuit. And although it was a good deal for us who lived here, there were those who could not get here that lived in California, New York, and Florida, and it was just It was just not a good deal for them. So it ended. But the truth is, that was the last time, 6.5 years ago, that we had a maintenance fee increase. Imagine all that has happened in 6.5 years. The cost of things in 6.5 years. And this board, with a significant amount of delinquencies and all the things that we have gone through, change of ownership, change of hands, and we will have a positive cash flow at the end of this year. Say thank you to this board. Say thank you. That is remarkable in and of itself. But at about the time the conversations began, back then, we were discussing, I think it was Jim and Leonard, myself and a couple others, as to just how we can go about acquiring the amenities. And my personal opinion is, I thought it was a pipe dream. I didn't think we would ever wrestle this thing away from my board, not in our lifetime. But somehow, through some smart people that assisted us and had legal knowledge and looked at the documents and back and forth in court cases and what have you and lawsuits, we were able to do that. And then we said to ourselves, oh my God, what did we get ourselves into? We looked at the golf courses and we said, oh geez, this is just incredible. And I forget who it was. I think it was Lou Storm that organized that mow day. Look at Lou Storm. Okay? And there was mowers everywhere. And then we cleaned that up. And then we just, one thing after another has been brought back. Not everything, but one thing after another. I just want you to look at it. Look right up there. And look remember what that looked like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. It's just incredible how far we have come. We've rebuilt lodging to great expense. So we had to have some place for your families and other families to stay, to visit us. We've got a lot more to do, but we have that now. We have a restaurant here. We have a new chef. We should have this opened up soon. Once we get past a little bit further past the COVID, I'm sure Bill Fitting will be talking about that later today. And we have lots of projects on the books ready to go. Lots of them. But throughout the entire process, this board has focused on managing the POA funds in a unique and conservative manner to make sure we can stretch the money as far as we can stretch it. And that is the primary concern. And now that COVID is a little more under control, this board will continue to renovate other facilities as we go. And just the fact that we have a positive cash flow now means a lot. There's a lot more we can do. But I'm asking for your vote to be put on another term here on this board, basically because of what we have done in the past and what we intend to do in the future. And I hope we can get it all done in the next term that I have here. Thank you very much.
Okay, that concludes the candidate statements. I ask each of you that have not yet cast your ballot to complete your ballot. And Sam, who's going to come around and collect it? Are you going to be there? Okay. We have staff that will come around and collect those ballots. So once you complete the ballot, if you have one, if you'll hold it up, a staff person or one of staff for Sam or Sam himself will come by and pick that up. Do we have any outstanding uncast ballots at this time? Any other ballots? Hold your ballots up so the staff can see them, please. Any more ballots? Last call. Any more ballots? Hold them up. Okay. Staff has completed the process of picking up ballots. They will, as we continue the meeting, they will be counting votes and will have us tally here before the end of the meeting.
I'm not going to give too many accolades to Jeff Williams because he's got to talk up here, but I will give the accolades anyway. Jeff stepped forward, first time that he was on the board, elected to the board, and accepted the position of treasurer. This is, Jeff was appointed to the commission. It was a unilateral dictatorship from someone I know well. Jeff was very gracious in accepting the position of treasurer and has done a superb job. He's kept us on path and he's guided us with the things that we should do. And he is not a CPA, but he has a fantastic financial mind. And we're blessed to have him on the board in the position that he's in. He's actually going to cover two aspects, items 2 and 3 on the agenda. The pending audit report, which he has not completed yet. Not that he was responsible for, but he has not completed it yet. But he's going to talk about that very briefly and then get into a financial report from the association.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Williams. I am the treasurer. I did accept it. I did not seek it. If I could resign from the position of treasurer, I would. But as these guys, as Leonard said, as these guys have heard me say at least 1,000 times in the last 3 years, I'm not an accountant. But I was one of the few on the board that could count to 11, so I got more. I'm asked to cover the pending audit report. I learned that I was covering that just shortly ago. We expected the audit to be complete here, but it is still pending. We hope to see the result of it very shortly. The reason for the delay, very simply, is that when we went into this year, we started on the accounting platform that Associa, who controls Property Owners Association, collects the revenues from our dues and was compiling the financials. Once we got the amenities open, particularly the restaurants and the golf courses, we quickly saw that we needed the more robust accounting platform that Arcus, who we had hired to oversee the restaurants and the golf courses, simply gave us all of the broad accounting ledger that we needed that the other platform didn't. So the reason for the delay is that they're still working through the transition, which happened earlier this year, from one accounting platform to the other. Not an issue with the audit. We feel very comfortable that we're going to come back with a clean audit report. And as soon as it is complete, which again we hope is in very short order, it will be communicated to you. You will be provided a copy of the audit as always. We'll do it through the Nextdoor platform, but hard copies are certainly available. Not Nextdoor, what's it called? That was a Freudian slip. Town Square, pardon me. That was truly Freudian.
Thank you, Jim.
That was my one joke for the day. Let's turn our attention to the financials of the White Bluff Property Owners Association. I'll start with a statement. We are in a good liquidity position. Your Property Owners Association is solvent. Leonard spoke briefly about some of the challenges that we face as we talk about not only the operation of this place, but the collection of revenues from all of us. I'll start talking about our total cash position. Today, we have about $3.3 million as of the end of August, about $3.3 million in cash and equivalents on our books. Sounds like a lot of money. Why haven't you spent it? Well, the reality is about 1.3 million of that is being held in reserve. We do have a $3.65 million balloon payment due 8 years from now. And so we have to begin to plan for that. We don't have the cash to write that check today, but we're working on a plan to get us to that point that you will all be involved in, and that we will, as it is fully fleshed out, you guys will be made aware of it. We have about $2 million in operating cash. Well, that represents the cash that is required between now and the end of the year, plus a few additional months to support the operations of everything we do here in White Bluff. That certainly represents the golf courses and the restaurant, but also the marina, the security force, the maintenance of all of our common area facilities around here. All of that, as you know, from maintaining your own properties doesn't come cheap. Let's talk about revenues quickly. To date, through August, our collections are running just shy of 75% of what we built through July. Now, that's a little worse than we ended last year. We can point to COVID, we can point to a number of things, but we believe that, and as you recall from our January meeting where we passed a budget, we had projected that we would continue on a pace of around 80% collections. We're coming in below that. We believe that by the end of the year, we will be north of 75%. But your board, in a working session back in July, revised our budget to assume that we only collect 75% of what we built, just in the interest of conservatism. So as I go through the numbers, and both John and Leonard have stolen my thunder to tell you that at the end of the day, we think we're going to produce a positive cash flow for this year, for this organization. Remember that the driving force in our financial success is the collection of maintenance fees that all of us as property owners pay to maintain and improve and continue the assets that we acquire. Let's talk about a little beyond that, though, and talk about some of the successes that we're having. Lodging revenue. You know, we don't have many lodging units, but we have the 4 condominium units and we have the 3 log cabins. We had been very conservative in how we projected revenues from those this year. As you recall, back in January, the golf courses had just opened after being closed for 18 months, effectively. The new course opened on effectively Labor Day weekend of last year. The old course opened briefly and then closed for the winter very late in the year and didn't reopen until April of this year. Easy to forget that when we see the packed parking lots at both courses on the weekends, but the old course has only been open effectively since April. But our lodging revenue, driven by property owners in large part who don't live here, that come down to enjoy playing golf, using the lake, etc., have come in about 35% above what we had projected. The marina, Leonard mentioned Mike Bell and his work, but also point to Ned Wilmarth and Marshall Schneider and others that have contributed greatly to a plan that has us running. We had a pretty aggressive budget for the marina, and we're still running about 7% ahead of that budget. And for the first time since I've been here in 5 years, the marina is fully occupied. We've leased all the slips. If you want one, you can't get one right now. We'll put you on a waiting list, and that's good news. Now, there are plans to continue to make improvements at the marina and do lots of great things that we would all love to see there. But again, it costs money, and it is a matter of sequencing the priority of those capital expenditures. Golf rounds through August, in the month of August, golf rounds we projected very conservatively. We didn't know what to expect, frankly, especially in terms of outside play. We know that homeowners in particular are going to take advantage of it when they're here. Property owners have begun to re-engage in the place now. They see the quality and the character of the golf courses as they've been renovated. But in August, our total rounds came in 21% higher than we had budgeted. For the year, we're about 2% below our budget, but we didn't forecast COVID and weather and all of the things that impacted us greatly early in the year. So we're coming in about what we expected in August is precursor to September and October. We think would be just fine in terms of the number of rounds played. Revenues from those rounds are about 15% below budget. Now, largely that's we've gotten less outside play than we had hoped for. Now that too is picking up again the month of August and July and August. Those numbers are greatly improved over the earlier part of the year as word of mouth gets around about how great things are here. It also was greatly impacted by the fact that because the greens were still immature and growing in, we didn't open the old course until April, as I said earlier. But we feel good about where we are going. We feel good about the plan we have going forward. Our food and beverage operation, again, none of us expected the indoor dining to be closed for much of the summer. None of us expected the turmoil that came as a result of the COVID-19 closures, and the fact that we are just beginning to ramp up tournament play, which brings in a lot of revenue, not only for the golf courses, but also from the restaurants over time. So we expect that will greatly improve over time as well. Let's talk about the expense side of the ledger. Like most operating businesses, the biggest cost we have is people. I meant to ask you, Bill, what's the total number of employees we have now? 85? I was going to say 75. So we have lots of part-time people working in golf maintenance and others that work a handful of days a week. We had fully expected the cost of our payroll and related to represent about 35 or so % of our total revenues. We're actually coming in below that number. And because we saw COVID, and I give a lot of credit to Bill Finney, our general manager, and Mike Hicks, our director of golf, and Mike Shelton, our great new superintendent, who took a hard look when we saw the effects of COVID on the overall economy, and we reduced our headcount. We employed those people we had to employ for much of the summer. And so not surprising that continues and will continue to be a big percentage of the total revenues of the operation. Total other expenses total about $1.6 million through August. A large part of that, when you look at the summary financial reports, shows up as general and administrative expense. You think, what is Bill Finney spending money on now down at that POA office? Well, the reality is more than half of that total other expenses represents, about 48% of that total, by the way, represents what we expect not to collect from the revenues, from the maintenance fees that we bill to property owners. That's that 25% that we haven't collected. Shows up as a bad debt expense that when you look at just at the summary total, it shows up under general administrative expenses. If you exclude bad debt from the total other expenses, you're at about $855,000, or about 19% of our total operating revenue. When we look at the other significant things, and I'll move quickly here, when we look at utilities, we hadn't operated both golf courses and good detail on what we should expect there. So we're about $40,000 over our anticipated expense for the electric bill. Big number. We know, we now know, and we have adjusted for that going forward, but these are, because we didn't have that history for all the amenities, when we put the first budgets together, we missed them. Our property taxes, even though we have Tony Comperine, one of our property owners here, who owns a business that they're in the business of negotiating property tax bills, has worked for us for no charge with Hill County, and even despite that, because values are going up for all these assets, our property tax bill is about $28,000 above budget. Our insurance bill is about $13,000 above what we had budgeted. Partly because we finally completed the marina lease, and so we had some additional expenses. The transfer of the marina lease from Double Diamond to us, from the Corps of Engineers. We picked up some additional expenses there that we hadn't planned for. One of the questions that I'm often asked is, gosh, it seems like we pay an awful lot of fees in management fees to Associate, who again does our property owners association work, billing, collections, that sort of thing, and to Arcus, who manages the amenities and does all of our accounting work. Year to date, we paid $162,000 to those two firms. That annualizes to about $244,000 a year. That's a big number. But remember, for that, we received the functions of both firms' accounting staffs, their accounting systems, billing and collection for our POA maintenance fees, technology support, the coordination of payroll, human resources, and employee benefits for our staff. When we hired these two firms, we, as Leonard said, we did an extensive and exhaustive search nationwide for firms that could provide these services to us. This was the best deal for us and the best fit in terms of their ability to provide the services. But we also included that we could not create those functions ourselves and buy the necessary technology for less than we were paying to these two firms. So we're happy, I've had a couple of questions about that. I've walked people through the numbers. I'm happy to do that with anybody that wants more detail on that. The other big item that we get questions about, well, gosh, there's an equipment lease bill of $269,000 year to date on the books. That represents leases on equipment primarily to serve the golf courses, but also the general maintenance of the place, vehicles, etc. Number's not going to go away. When we acquired the amenities, we also acquired equipment, much of which was not serviceable. It had been run to death. So we signed a new lease that costs a lot of money to big red Toro machines that you see running around. They go by my house and wake me up at 6:30 every morning. Are out there taking care, and that's why the courses and the general grounds look the way they do. Based on where we are today, through August, our positive cash flow from operations before we make any additional capital expenditures this year will total just over $300,000. Now, if we don't improve our collections rate back to that 75% by the end of the year, that number is going to be cut in half or more. But the good news is we believe that from operations, and we all know that there's lots of money that needs to be spent on capital improvements to get us to where we all want this place to be by the end of the day. But we believe we're going to just about break even this year from a cash flow perspective. And I think that's the good news that all of us should walk away from my comments with. Thank you.
Difference between Jeff and an accountant is he has a personality. Sam just resigned. Call Bill Finney to give us the general manager report.
Easy to follow. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody here and thank you for your time. As everything around here, since our COVID-19 started, things change on a daily basis. When this meeting was first booked, and we set the date, we didn't have a tournament there. We rescheduled the Chamber of Commerce tournament committee for different times. They're over there playing at the old course. And consequently, we had to open this course so our property owners had a place to play today. So if anybody screams for, duck. Because the guy that hit that ball up here is really dangerous. I'm going to take this report back a little bit, longer than normal. I'm going to run this from about April, which is when I first got here. I'm going to do a chronological order of the different projects that have been completed, the different projects that are in place, and all the things that have been happening in the last couple of years. I would like to thank the POA staff, Mike Shelton and his staff for the golf courses, because I think the place is looking really great. So thank you for guys. On top of that, the POA staff is involved in a whole lot more than they ever had before trying to get some of these projects done. So moving forward, I got here last April, hired by associate, and ARPA's actually a combination, and I came in as a POA manager. At that time, it was everybody start running because we're moving forward. To put this in perspective, in April of 2019, we opened the condos up for rental. The 3 months before that was the tough part because they were doing the renovations then. They finished those, got the cabins open, and we got the condos rented. In 2019, May, we opened Mulligan's. Again, this is from 6 months to a year's worth of renovations that have been happening, put together by the board and finalized by the board as we move through that. In August of 2019, the new course opened. In addition to that, we had to do some major road work up the road on Stonewood. If you'll notice through some of these roads, the culverts that are running underneath, they're all metal culverts that are rusted out. When that was happening, it was washing the base of the road out, so it was due to collapse. We fixed that one in October. And for those golfers who play this course, that's exactly what's happened over here on number 18. It's the same thing. The bottom of the culvert's rusted out. When the water starts running, it pulls the base out from under it and collapses. In October of 2019, the old course opened. That was after some serious work in the pro shop there. We had to replace the air conditioning. We had the pro shop painted. My staff put the restrooms back together, rebuilding commodes and tanks and storage and all that. So we put a lot of time in there. Then also in October, we had a meeting with Associate and Arcus, and we changed some of the parameters of the agreements that we had. That's when we got into the accounting part. That's where we had Arcus switch to be doing our financials, and Associate also revamped their billing structure a little bit. So they came up with their master bill. So y'all didn't get these 20 bills at one time, and they put that in one situation. So you get one statement, which makes things a whole lot easier for everybody. In November of 2019, we did some work on the marina itself. If anybody has noticed up there, there's some serious erosion going under the walkways. We went in and fixed one because we weren't sure it was going to work. We went in, dug some more footers, ran some rebar into the existing concrete base of those, and it seemed to be holding pretty well. With that in mind, the board just approved redoing the other 3 walkways. And we were actually scheduled to do that in the next 2 weeks, and then the lake went up about 2 foot. So we're kind of on hold till the lake goes back down on that. In December of 2019, the marine release was finally put into the POA's name. And then we could move forward with working on our asset. The board approved over $40,000 worth of repair work. It was mainly safety related. The winches, the winch stands, the cable on the winches was all rusted, rotted, and broken. If we'd have had a really bad storm with a really bad flood, we'd have lost the marina. It's now been put back together, it's secure, it's been moved. We have some other work to do down there though. The Marina Committee itself put together, I believe it's a 3- and 5-year plan, Marshall, is that correct? And we're working in that direction. These are all recommendations from the Marina Committee. And Mike Bell, and Marshall, and Ned Wilburn. And then March 2020 comes around. Started a great new golf season. We're getting ready to open the old course. New course is looking good, and COVID-19 hit. Per the governor, all the public pools need to be closed. The restaurants need to be closed. The condos and the cabins were closed. We actually pulled the advertising off of the website, so we weren't bringing people in from outside of that time. At one point, we had received information, because as you all know, information was flying rapidly. One night at 10 o'clock, I got a phone call from Mike Hicks, the golf director. And he said, Bill, they've just said that the golf courses have to close. So 10 o'clock at night, we got on the phone, started calling everybody. At that point, we had plans in place on how to keep the golf courses manicured and kept up so we wouldn't lose them and move forward. By 12 o'clock that day, as I said, it changes rapidly. Leonard Pritchard talked to the judge, Johnson, is that correct? Our Hill County judge. And the Hill County judge said, no, you can stay back open. So by 1 o'clock that day, we were back open again. We put a lot of procedures in place at that time and a lot of protocols to protect the staff, protect the residents, and protect everybody that we could around here. In May and June of 2020, we redid our budgets due to what the COVID did to us. We had no idea what was going to happen. And we finally opened the Mulligans back up about Memorial Weekend, which was May. Put together a 3-year capital program, as Jeff was talking about. We also had to redo the employee benefits and put those back in perspective. The board had a tough time with that, as we all did. The last project that we just completed, and as I say, these are ongoing and they happen all the time. We just completed the air conditioning work in the conference center. That was approved clear back in February, I believe, by the board. And the intent was to get the conference center back open so we could hold meetings, so you had a place to gather, so we could use it as a rental situation. Again, we pulled the plug on that at that point because of COVID. Now it's back open and we're putting that together very slowly. That's just a list of projects that have happened in the last 15 years. 15 months, excuse me. It seems like 15 years though. Yeah. So as you can see, the board has been moving forward. They've spent a lot of time on the financial end of it. And so you all are comfortable with this. We did not finance one project. Every project we did came out of cash flow. So, with that in mind, I'm going to get off this stand. Anybody have it? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
It is my distinct pleasure to call the next person to the podium, who heads up probably the most crucial group of volunteers that we have in our volunteer fire department, Chief Hugh Corbin.
Very much. And good morning. 25 years ago, residents of this community saw the need for a fire department. This occurred after lightning struck one of the houses and helped those far, far away. They started with just a few volunteers and one brush truck. The department has continued to serve the residents and has steadily grown what we have today. Your White Bluff Fire Department has 3 brush trucks, 2 fire engines, 1 3,000-gallon water tanker, and a special truck for medical calls, auto accidents, and rescues. This truck carries jaws of life, oxygen, AEDs, and other medical supplies. We also are proud to have the only fire rescue boat on Lake Whitney. The department is immensely proud to have the only active rehab unit in Hill County. This is a van that's stocked with water, tents, vans, food, that goes out when the fire department is called out, particularly in bad weather like August or when it's very cold, to give the firemen relief on calls that can last for several hours or more. Its members are the approximately 6 members of the support group, which has about 20 members in the fire department. Their duties also include, get breakfast at this morning. They do all of the planning for fundraisers and other events that happen with the fire department. The department currently has 17 volunteer firefighters. That includes 5 EMTs and 3 emergency care attendants who provide the medical response in White Bluff. As far as I know, no other department in this county has anything close to this kind of a medical response unit. Ordinarily, if you have a medical problem or a fall and call 911, the first responders to arrive will be the White Bluff medical response members. However, due to concerns about the spread of the coronavirus, your fire department is not being notified about calls in White Bluff by order of the Hill County Emergency Manager, Tom Henry. My efforts to resume responses and make a respond to calls has thus far been ignored. So, fire departments are awfully expensive businesses. They provide the emergency response for fires and accidents or medical calls. It also affects the cost that everyone pays for their fire insurance on their home. The fire department is paid $40,000 a year by the POA to provide fire and medical services. This is the same amount paid for as long as, well, anyone can remember. During the last year, water leaks to the roof of the 2 buildings cost $14,000 for the repair ceiling. $23,000 was paid on the loan for the tanker, $14,678 for repairs to the trucks, and $2,246 for personal protection equipment. These expenses are in addition to the normal cost to run a fire department, such as fuel, routine maintenance of the trucks in the buildings, and utilities. We also pay for the insurance for the trucks and for the firefighters. You can see that just to maintain the equipment requires all our money, plus all the generous and very generous donations we receive from the residents of White Bluff. This does not include any upgrades to old vehicles that are 20 to 25 years old. We had hoped to replace one of the 2000-year model rush trucks that was costing more to maintain than it was worth. The request for money to replace the truck using the capital improvement funds collected by the POA was turned down. One urgent issue involves the air we breathe from compressed air tanks at the fire scenes. These air tags allow firefighters to enter a burning structure for rescue or to fight the fire. This requires that the air tanks to be refilled after each use with clean, breathable air. We became concerned that the refill station previously used was not changing filters or getting any inspections. Therefore, the quality and purity of the air was in question. Our temporary solution had been to take the empty cylinders to the fire station in Hillsborough, to have them refilled. However, because of scheduling and manpower availability, this may not happen for several days after use, which could limit the number of firefighters that can have clean air to breathe in the next fire. The solution to this issue is a refill station here in White Bluff, but the cost is over $25,000. Another project is the replacement of the outboard motor on our fire rescue boat. The 90 horsepower motor has proven to be unreliable and restricts the speed of the boat. This has been noted in the last 2 rescues. To solve this problem, a new motor with more horsepower is needed. I'm happy to report that the generous contributions from residents and firemen here in White Bluff and a grant from Hillco has made this possible, and we'll be getting a new motor soon. I'm sorry to report that our fall barbecue and music fundraiser has been canceled this year due to the restrictions on the number of people allowed to be present because of the coronavirus. We also look forward to being able to resume the Sunday morning pancake breakfast at the fire station. As stated at the beginning, this is our 25th anniversary, and as such, we need to begin thinking about future upgrades to the building and the equipment that will be needed. Anyway, there are currently about 650 homes in White Bluff, and it's growing quickly now. This number is growing with homes being built, I think there's 20, if I'm not mistaken, that are on the have to be built. So this is a significant increase from what we've had in the last couple of years. And I think it's going to go both from there. At this time, I'd like to have all the firefighters and the support people from the fire department to stand up. These are your names. These are your neighbors who volunteer their time and energy day or night so we all can be safe. We all thank you for your support, which we could not do without. And it helps make this department that belongs to everyone in Hill County, or at least in White Bluff, the best it can be in Hill County. Thank you very much.
We're very fortunate in our new golf course superintendent to have a young man who is extremely skilled in what he does, as you can see just by looking at the golf courses. We has Mike Shelton to give us a report on the golf courses. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. I was brought on after the previous Greg's departure, starting in March of this year, 1st of April. Very happy to be here, very excited about the possibility of this property and what it has to offer. I have some history with the property in this area, so I was very happy to get back into this area. And I have a lot of great ideas going forward. And Mr. Pritchard here stole my opening remark, and I was going to hash on our president's campaign slogan and make White Bluff great. So we'll go from there. And the interview process back in March, this one's going to be an issue, sorry. I conducted a course evaluation. I knew that the course had been closed for 18 months, 2 years prior to the recent reconstruction, and driving through, what I did was kind of give my evaluation to the board, to Bill Finney and Argus and everyone else involved. as to what I thought the property needed to get to the caliber of course that it should be. So what we did there was, going through and identifying key areas where we needed to have immediate improvement. At that time, late March, April, both courses were not being kept in the same condition. The old course was currently closed. A lot of that goes back in with COVID and the growing, obviously. Both conditions on properties were not the same. Weeds were problematic everywhere throughout the property. There were several thin areas still from tee to green. Most of the greens were in good shape. There were a lot of thin areas in tee and fairways that I felt like in the main corridor should be addressed on the prompt matters. Those were a few of the things that most notably stood out to me. So that gave me an idea in talking with the board and getting an idea of the expectations of the property of a game plan moving forward. So we hit the ground running. Like I said, I started the first week of April, I believe, so I'm approaching my 6-month mark. I guess to preface all this, as an outsider coming in, not knowing how bad it was 2 years ago, not knowing everything was waist high and closed down, it's easy to drive around with my background and say, well, this should be this way, this should be that way, the details aren't kept up, why are there bare spots? But then I found myself putting myself in check and recalling that the course had been closed and abandoned for 18 months to 2 years. We were able to hit the ground running in April, thanks in large part to what my predecessor Greg, with the contribution of the Greens Committee and the board and their involvement, and Jay as well, and the remarkable feat that they accomplished and the time they accomplished it. So having new greens built, new bunkers, and then turning 255 acres of golf course from waist-high abandoned land into what you currently see now has been a daunting task, but a very fulfilling and rewarding one for all of us involved. Some of the key things we've accomplished in the past 6 months of my tenure, the bunkers, when I arrived, were in question. We had some gravel contamination that we had to address. We started to develop new maintenance practices that would correct that issue, as well as the depth of the sand in the bunkers. And good news in response to that, we finally found a comparable sand that I can go back with and start to add sand to the bunkers to keep them in the current condition we have now. A lot of the water features on the property were neglected, again with the key focus being to address the main corridor, the playing corridor. A lot of the water features as far as pond edges, having knee-high weeds, a lot of the water features don't hold water, as we're all aware, golfer-wise, and a lot of these submersible pump systems that we have to circulate water were currently in disrepair when I arrived. That was something we've also accomplished. That was actually accomplished in April and May. We got both pumps here on the new course replaced for the circulation principles, and then my staff and myself developed a better maintenance plan as far as the aesthetic quality of the lakes on property, all the water features and ponds you see. The fountain at the old course was repaired, I believe, the first month as we opened the old course, I think 4 weeks in to my tenure here. That was kind of set as priority number one for me from the board, and trying to get the old course back open so we have both properties available, and then again have the conditions on both properties mirror each other. They should both be in great shape. A lot of what I saw too in the evaluation process during the interview was a lot of the detail stuff was not being kept up with, as far as line trimming, weeding around ponds, bunker edging, greens edging. So we, as a company, invested all this money in regaining the 2 golf courses the past 3 years. And to me, it stood out as if we're going to invest all this capital into rebuilding a golf course, then we need to have it reflect the investment that we made. It needs to mirror the quality that should be expected of brand new greens and brand new bunkers. Happy to report that my staff and I have developed a schedule again that has kept us on track with the detail work as far as the detailing of the golf course, which stands out to anybody who comes out to visit, whether it's property owners playing or their guests and family or anybody from the outlying areas who play our courses. In the past couple months, we've started to implement a tree management program. Our goal here is to create turf areas next to greens where we previously did not have any turf areas. A good example of that for the golfers who've been out here. So we started on hole number 13 on the old course and hole number 2 on the new course. And basically the principle here is we're trying to thin out the amount of trees enough to where we have enough sunlight to grow turf grass. There's been some misconception flying around with our planning process as far as the white ribbons and pink ribbons and everything else. We are on track. We have a plan. We've involved several Greens Committee members and 2 local arborists to help us identify these areas. And again, the goal here is to create a balance between having nice mature post oak trees that enhance the quality of the golf course as well as create turf areas for the purpose of playability. One thing that will change this winter in comparison to last is I intend to oversee all the tee boxes on the property. It's been brought to my attention through several Greens Committee meetings and then meeting with golfers on course during my drive-throughs that a lot of the tee boxes are small and unlevel, so what that allows us to do by overseeing all the tee boxes this winter is, 1, keep the playability there as we expect to increase more rounds played from outside golf, and 2, it will allow us to complete some minor tee leveling projects throughout the winter as we have actively growing turf grass. That'll be a change from last year. In meeting with Mr. Pritchard and his wife and all the work they put into Mulligan's and all the pride associated with the renovations here, we met during my first month to discuss what I could do to enhance the drive that it built, the curbside build, and the course clubhouse. We initially made some improvements with landscaping. The front 2 beds were redone with Texas native hardy plants that will do well in our area. And we have a plan going forward to continue that process and to help that first impression of everybody that comes in, whether it's a property owner or, like I said, one of the guests or family. A lot of that to me is, the first impression, the last impression coming off the golf course goes a long ways to getting these people to return and play more golf. So that's another project we have coming up this winter. With the help of Jay Elder and the rest of the board, I was able to acquire a sod cutter for our own use to stay on site. We also intend to use that. So I spoke about in my evaluation, we had a bunch of bare spots and fairways and approaches to greens and very adjacent to fairways and roughs. We intend to start that project also in the next few weeks to utilize the new equipment that we were able to allocate through our lease program and complete my goal of having turf coverage from tee to green. Again, I'm very excited to be here. I think this place has an amazing potential. I'm happy with the progress that we've made this summer. It was a lot of work, clearly, and we have a lot of work going forward, but I'm very happy with the progress, and I'm very thankful to all of you for all the team support. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you, Michael, for being here. Next person on the agenda is Terry Earhart. Terry, as you're walking up here, many of you don't know this, but when we went from 4-foot thistles in a horrendous condition of this course, and before we hired Michael's predecessor, Greg, someone had to oversee all of this. And this is the lady who did that. And she did it very, very well. She's chairman of our Greens Committee, and she'll give us a report now.
I was going to say good morning, but I think good afternoon's a little bit better. We're getting pretty close. I'm Terry Earhart. Some of you might have maybe seen me wandering around in the weeds. Probably couldn't see the top of my head for quite a while, but anyway, I was out here when we first got this thing going. Now I'm charged with president of the Greens Committee. And many of you may or may not know what we do. And so I'm going to try to give you a brief synopsis of what we do and who we are. We're made up of a committee of 9 people, myself, Mike Moot is our vice president, Betty Moot is our secretary, Larry Smith is the chairman of our Marshall program, Marshall and Starter program. Ed Helmbeck is Ed Helmbeck, Robert Woods, Garrett Williams, Rosemary Patterson, and Larry Gropel. Those folks make up the Greens Committee. We meet every third Thursday of every month during the months of March through November. We also have Mike Shelton, our Director of Agronomy, at our meetings, as well as Mike Hicks. Jay Elder is our board liaison and communicates to the board our intentions. Bill Finney is our general manager, he also attends. In addition, we have Jay Canada, who's our MGA representative, as well as Monica Copeland, who represents our LGA. We kind of operate in a precarious position in between the board and those folks that play golf. Our mission, for those of you that are interested, is to prepare, preserve, and maintain the old course and the new course as a major white glove property POA asset. To protect, understand, and fulfill the golf course vision and goals for a firm, fast, and fair golf challenge for all levels of players and abilities. We do that by executing plans and procedures that maintain a superior golf experience, as well as enhance and protect the environmental property and aesthetics of White Bluff. Our objectives within that mission statement, if you will, is to maintain the golf courses with excellent playing conditions for both championship as well as average golfers. Golf courses, we ask, should play near championship standards within weather limitations on a continual basis and at a higher championship level when certain events arise. The Greens Committee will provide support and guidance to the Director of Golf, Director of Agronomy, and does not make any management decisions within our capacity. That objective is kind of a mouthful, but basically it ensures that when you show up on Monday, you're going to be playing the same golf course you might play on Friday, and you might play the same golf course and expectations on the old course versus the new course. So that is our main objective. We're also focused on maintaining wildlife habitats. We're very aware of our environment and the wonderful property we have with all of the wildlife, our trees, fairways, and such. And we are committed to moving that forward by establishing/reestablishing native habitats, bringing in natural grasses, wildflowers, and other areas that would not only enhance the aesthetics, but also allow Mike's staff to put his labor force on the golf course and not mow areas that are irrelevant to the play area. A lot of our speakers have gone down memory lane, so I won't do that for you. But the first time we did meet as a Greens Committee, you may find this funny, I do, was June 2018. We had two things on our agenda. Was to remove all the dead and unsafe trees on the property and hire a mechanic ASAP. At that time, I was operating as I don't know what you would call me, a superintendent as well as the the Greens Committee president. March 2019, which is a date nobody's actually talked about today, both golf courses were half finished. So I'd like you to sit with that date for a minute and then think about where we are at this point in time. We've come a long way in a very short period of time. Once it was finished, excuse me, let me back up a second. Robert Woods has been pretty instrumental in making sure that we get our senior tees and all of the yardages and tee markers in the correct place. To say that's been a monumental task would be an understatement. But I want to thank him personally for taking that on. That was a pretty big job. Once the courses were open, we began looking at the future and asked for the courses to be rated and re-rated as soon as possible. And that's in a reflection of our scorecards now. Once COVID hit, we obviously didn't meet. We met again in May. When it's the first time we actually met Mike Shelton. And that first meeting, we established our maintenance standards with Mike, specifically asking him to prepare the golf course without interference, but with consistency, so that you do show up, obviously, and expect the same green speeds, you expect the same conditions on the fairways, bunkers, and so forth. That's very important for us. And by the way, he was very much on board with that. The one way he does that is to give him a specific number. I think we call that a stent meter reading. It's nice to say we would like the greens to roll smooth and fast, but nobody really knows what that means. So we charged him with having a specific number for a ball to roll. And I think, unless during the Q&A I get a lot of questions about it, I think everybody seems to be happy with the conditions. Our future plans that we have are to focus our resources in areas that may or may not be in direct play, areas that we can take out of play by maybe not spending a half hour on a rough mower mowing areas that are of no consequence, rather taking that half hour and that employee and putting them on the golf course and managing that. We have been charged with getting a Marshall program and a starter program going, which we have started last month. I understand that is going very well, and I appreciate Larry Smith and all the work he does for that. Totally volunteer. We've also brought in the high school program with the Bluff High School, Whitney High School, and Aquila. Hopefully they'll be showing up here, there, and everywhere to hopefully try to bring in some new interest in golf and bring in the young folks back to us. Our forward tees, or our orange tees, they're going to be put out this winter. They're going to look exactly like the rest of them. We plan on having at least 100-yard marker in the up front where you can have some idea where you are. We have been instrumental in getting the courses staked out with out of bounds red stakes and yellow stakes that you see appearing here, there, and everywhere. So we'll continue that. We also operate mostly in a supportive capacity, and we're very supportive of all the knowledge that Mike Shelton brings to us and his efforts to try to figure out how to keep how to get our ponds back where they can look good for us and make those work for us the way they were intended. One of the things we asked Mike to do when we first met him is to make us a 4-star resort. I constantly look at our website and other websites out there, Golf Now, TripAdvisor, Avid Golfer, and I would encourage all of you to go look at those. We are 4 stars, sometimes 4.5, and it's been through the effort of everybody, monumental effort of everybody, and I want to make that known, and hopefully you will go check those out. Please do. In addition, I have some pictures for you of where we want to go. We have some native grasses that we'd like to plant. We've got wildflowers and all kinds of things that we like to do. I have pictures and ideas up here for anybody that would like to look at them when we're done. I don't want you to get the idea we're just going to let it all go fallow and it's all going to be weeds. That is not anywhere near the case. So thank you all for your time and thank you for letting me talk to you today.
Mark, start walking, Mark. Start walking. Mark Hepworth is going to give us a report as our liaison with the Marina Committee.
Thank you, Leonard. My name is Mark Hepworth, and I've got the ringing ear. I've got some real good news for you. I'm going to speak probably about 5 minutes, but I did bring some props. My wife, Deborah, and I bought a house out here 7 years ago on the old golf course, and we moved out here full-time 2 years ago. I'm happy to announce I'm the youngest member of this board. Probably not exactly on age, but on term served. I was appointed this past year to take the place of the large shoes of Roy Miller after his untimely death. And I want to take this chance just to thank the board and thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to serve. I've heard a lot of people talking about repetition is good, to point out some of the good things that are happening over here. And I think when I look around here and I see this golf course, I realize what it looked like about 2 years ago and how thankful we are for some of the amenities we have out here. A couple guys left these in my driveway today. Feel free to keep those. We've got tennis courts, pickleball courts out here. These will not hurt so much. I can throw those a little bit farther. We are blessed to have trails to walk around and look at some of the deer and all the nature. We're going to keep this one. We got a baseball field. It's not hard. Even an outdoor basketball court. So we've really got quite a few amenities out here. I'm going to keep this one also. But I'm really here to just talk about our Marina Committee. It's the closest thing I have to a boat hat. Bill Finney stole some of my thunder, but I just want to talk about that I believe that our marina is truly the front door to this beautiful lake, Whitney. And it really is quite an amenity. We are blessed to have 4 docks that hold 114 slips. And oddly, they're sequential, or they're numbered dock 1, dock 3, dock 2, and dock 4. I haven't figured that out yet. But each of these slips, we have on these 114 slips, we have 40-foot, 30-foot, and 22-foot slips. And as mentioned earlier, for the first time, I think probably ever, we're fully rented out. Now that's actually some really good news, because of course that will now give the board a chance to look at the feasibility of expanding these slips at some future date. And again, this will be dependent on working with the Corps of Engineers and of course availability of funds. What have we done this past year? Structurally and maintenance, quite a bit. Again, Mr. Finney, thank you for doing my whole speech. But thank God I had some props. Structurally, the whole marina is really floating, and of course we're well aware the lake goes up, the lake goes down a lot. So we're floating, but we're tethered by winches, winch stands, and cables and anchors. And this year we had 10 winch stands. This is really another 10 winch stands replaced. We refurbished the winches, strung quite a bit of new cable, and I think replaced 2 different anchors. At the same time, we did some work on the floats. Many people know, if you're down to the marina, you'll see that we have the metal ramps that come off the concrete platforms. At some point, when the lake gets up too high, the ramps drop down. It's quite a hassle, quite a problem to bring those back. The board authorized and paid for additional floats for all 4 of those ramps. Bill touched on that we redid the rebar and structure and refortified our cement concrete blocks that actually hold those metal ramps. And then there was also 3 truckloads of limestone that came in that helped us with our erosion issues. So they've really been doing quite a bit of work. I promise you 5 or 6 minutes, so I'm going to make it rather quickly. But let's get on to what we want to look at into the future. Again, everything comes down to money, and in this case with the marina, dealing with the Corps of Engineers. But we would be looking at trying to add additional slips, expanding existing docks or adding docks. One of our plans is to move our dock number 2 and 4 20 feet to the north, which is just open up a little bit more space, make it a little bit more accessible for boats to get in to the marina. We're looking at options to restore our gasoline system to the marina and possibly the store. Again, a lot of money. We've got figures of something about $100,000 or $140,000 to do this, but these are on our wish list. And again, these are things that the Marina Committee is always looking at. Within the scope of the Corps of Engineers, we're going to try to look at trying to have some type of presence where we sell food, ice, drinks, possibly fishing stuff, fishing equipment through either a food truck, a floating marina store, possibly partnering with somebody else and reopening the old marina store at the top of the hill. I did have the honor of meeting and working with Mike Bell. And it feels like 2020 but losing Roy and Mike both were very tough. I don't believe Ned is here today, but we have a gentleman who's stepping up to head the Marina Committee, highly skilled, very knowledgeable. I believe the committee is going to be in great hands. Do we have any Marina Committee members here today? Oh, wait. I do appreciate your help on this, and I do love this because I am not a boat owner, but I'm pretty quite a bit about this. Wish everybody has a great time. Thank you for being here, and happy boating.
Most of you don't know, but you just witnessed a miracle. That's Mark was former city councilman in Grand Prairie, and he's not accustomed to talking briefly. Okay, so now you're about to witness another miracle. I've already written John Bass a note. Just say what you got to say, get it over with, so we can move on. We need to leave some on time.
Well, Leonard always likes to save the best for last, so to speak. He's the leader of the program.
That's why Marshall's
Anyway, Mark's a hard act to follow, but he doesn't have to talk about a big pile of poo. I knew somebody laughed at that one. Anyway, I mentioned earlier that I was on the Water Sewer Rate Committee back in 2008. We had a positive outcome there. But we ran out of money. The inkling of an idea was there that we could go further in proving we were being overcharged if we had the opportunity. Well, the opportunity arose in 2017. That's how long we've been working on the water. The current water rate issue is what, it was 2017, wasn't it? August of 2017. 3 years, almost, well, more than that now. But anyway, a week ago, I received this PUC document that had been filed, and a number of people have asked me, what is the status of this and what is the status of that? As you well know, Midway Utilities has taken over for Double Diamond. Double Diamond has sold their interest in all the utilities at all their resorts. For whatever reason, we don't care. We just care that they're down the road. But, as I said earlier, it's a big pile of poo. We have a lot of problems. Midway Utilities, I'm sure, is not real happy with what they purchased. But be thankful for them that we have a responsible company that is trying to make it right and fix it. I'm sure at some time in the future we will have a sizable rate increase to cover the cost. But in the meantime, we should have had our new rates installed in February of 2018. So up until the last 2, 3, 4 months, when the new rates actually took place and Midway took over, you've been paying the old double diamond rate. Now, according to this document, you will start getting your refund or rebate from the overcharge of those 2 years in your November billing. The amount that we were overcharged came to $689,000. Now divide that by about 620 ratepayers, and you get the message of just how much is involved here. But I want to read it, just a few of these, because I want to keep it under 5 minutes. Case in point, I didn't know who to pick, so I just picked a few. My next door neighbor, Joyce Reed, are you here? Good, I can say what she. Her rebate or refund over the course of 2 years will be $1,194. Charles Young, are you here? No, okay. 1,041, these are my next door neighbors. Doug Neville, are you here? Doug's got a brand new house, great big yard. He just cleared a whole bunch more of it. $1,702 to Doug Neville. Now, the POA stepped in and assisted us with funding for this project in dealing with this rate case. We spent upwards, in fact, over $200,000 to fight this rate case. That is monumental in the world of the PUC here in Texas. That's a record. I don't know. There needs to be some legislation somewhere to deal with that kind of excessive circumstance, because no entity that does not have the tight-knit communication circumstance that we have could possibly deal with that. But the POA gave us matching funds. And here's the reason why. The POA has about 50 water meters. I just picked 5 that all happen to be on this sheet together. These 5 alone, the POA will receive $27,574 on just 5 out of the 50 that we have. Okay? By the way, Leonard, your son will receive $1,779. I'm sure he needs the money. Okay? Jim Fletcher, 983. I just picked a few people here. Not that one. Anyway, you get the message. Mark Edworth, 910. Okay. So the average rebate is about $900. Myself personally, I have 2 water meters, so I get double, but that's the way it goes. I have a well that irrigates, so I don't get the back of the gallons charged. But you get the message. Hopefully this will all start come November, and your water bill, which should be, if you don't use over 2,000 or 3,000 gallons, right now at $37, $38. On average, it's going to be $2 or $3 or $4 for the next 2 years. It's a good deal. Okay?
This has been a long, hard battle. I want to give credit to Marshall Smatter, who worked on the Water and Sewage Committee.
Yes, I forgot.
And also Scott Shelton.
Scott.
And John Bass is opening the Bass Investment Firm for those of you who want something to do for rebates. He'll be taking checks, money, or cash. Bring up Marshall, you next? Marshall Smatter. This is something very important as Marshall is walking up here. We've had some problems, as he's going to detail to you. This is one of the major things that we've been considering for several months, and Marshall's going to talk to you about it.
Thank you, Leonard. Good afternoon. My name is Marshall Snyder. It is my unique privilege to speak to you today about a future investment that we as a board are looking at to further improve the use of our irrigation lake water out of Lake Whitney. Before I do that, I want to thank everyone that's come to this meeting. As POA constituents, it is important that you become aware of your board activities and how our planning maps to further investments in the White Bluff community. Secondly, I would like to thank all the board members for their collective commitment towards achieving a shared vision for the White Bluff community that is inclusive of all property owners. Thirdly, I would like to give a special thanks to an individual who continues to step up with his time and expertise allocated to projects that support the community development. That individual is Richard Ashley. I don't know if Richard's here, but Richard has given his time to perform the system design on this newly proposed surface water extraction pump system to replace a legacy system that we inherited from the previous owner. So, thank you, Richard. Let me now pivot to a discussion of the board's plan for replacement of the current lake pump system. At the risk of oversimplifying this discussion, it's easy for me to think in terms of the current system. We pull surface water from Lake Whitney to the holding reservoirs, and those are the reservoirs at North Lake and the reservoirs at the South Golf Course Reservoir over by the driving range at the old course. Again, those reservoirs then pump the water onto the golf courses, and that water feeds irrigation of these amenities. It waters all the greens and, by the way, fills all the ponds on the golf courses. Now, again, that's an oversimplification. There's a lot of in-between stuff that Mike takes care of, but I want to try to keep this as non-technical as I can. Oops. Sorry. During the reconstruction of both of the White Bluff golf courses, deficiencies were noted in the fundamental design of the irrigation water distribution system. In fact, the system as a whole is only as good as the weakest link, and at this point, the weakest link is the extraction of water from the lake. Now, let me give you some idea of why it's so important. Lake water costs us about 23 cents per 1,000 gallons. It's non-potable, but it's great irrigation water. If you compare that to the utility water, you're talking in the tens of dollars per 1,000 gallons. We buy 1,300 acre feet of water per year from the Brazos River Authority to make all of these areas look beautiful. We have a hard time doing that. Number one, the lake levels, both high and low, are not consistent. Therefore, we can't pump water when we're flooding, and we can't pump water very well when it's too low. But namely, the water delivery capacity from Lake Whitney is inadequate during those extreme periods. And they become common on a monthly basis, particularly during the summer. As a result, maintaining the adequate reservoir levels from White Bluff to support the extended operation during the summer months is virtually impossible. Mike deserves a lot of credit because he's had to work with an extraction system that is frankly just inadequate. The timing in which the reservoir replacement occurs is very slow and it's just inefficient. So, let me talk about the key features and benefits of this new system design. The system will pump water during both average high and low lake levels. which is immensely more usable than it used to be. Before, we couldn't water at all on the lake pumps. Well, actually, when the lake got about 2 or 3 feet above a normal stage, which is 533 feet altitude. We are all going to create an air-conditioned shelter that will house the newly procured turbine pumps and controller electronics. Now, remember, the lakeside pumps today kind of exist somewhere between 535 feet altitude and 534, 33. That means when you get 2 feet above normal stage, you literally cannot pump water into our reservoirs. With the new design, we'll be moving it, the pumps themselves, to about 569 feet altitude. So that's basically out of the floodplain. Now, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put the shelter there so that we can protect both the turbine pumps and the electronics. And by the way, they're high voltage, so you can't be around it very well as a safety issue. Right now, the current pumps that sit basically at the lakeside with a kind of a makeshift fence around it. If you took some really creative kids from Whitney High School and turned them loose to try to get in that thing, they could probably get in it pretty easy. And with 480 volts sitting there kind of open, it's not a safe thing. So the new system will have a shelter. It will be raised at its level. It will have 2 basically state-of-the-art turbine pumps, which provide greater efficiency. They provide roughly 60% more water pumping capacity, which will be a real benefit towards helping keep the reservoir levels up. It will provide redundant backup during failure outages of one pump. Although the pumps are fairly reliable, there's always a chance you can get a lightning strike. Now, our electronics will be protected with lightning arresters, but there's always a chance that you will have failure. And we're going to build this thing so that they're easy to change out, and during periods of outage, we'll have redundancy in the pumps. The other thing the shelter will do is prohibit unauthorized access to the high power circuits. We just can't have that. There's too much liability, and we need to fix that. Of course, it will enable greater pumping capacity to achieve faster recovery. I think that's important. We've had some homeowners that live around the reservoirs that have complained about the fact that the water gets too low and it hurts the fish, it hurts the environment, and they start to smell a little bit. We're trying to eliminate that, although I'm not sure we will ever get to a constant level lake in those reservoirs, because the system as a whole, again, is only as strong as the weakest link. And ultimately, there's probably not enough pumping capacity, even with the new changes, to keep those reservoirs constant level during the summertime when we're pumping a lot of water on the golf course. However, we will be implementing a feedback system whereby there will be sensors at the reservoir levels, the pump houses, that will be fitted with a communication link back to the pumps in the lake. And it's a kind of a demand thing. When the sensors say pump me water, then the turbine pumps will be turned on, and so the system will start to fill up with water. So we think that will be less labor intensive, which will save us maintenance costs. Certainly, we won't have to go out there at a moment's notice and pull pumps out of the floodplain, because we'll be able to pump basically year-round without special maintenance actions. Let me give you a little background. We undertook this study in November of 2019, so we've been working on it for quite a long time. We have put together budgetary costs for the improved system. I'm not prepared to give you any of those costs today yet. We still have to go out and get firm fixed pricing from some of the suppliers. There will be 2 main yet, so I don't want to mislead you. It is an important future project, but we have to go through a process that would make this a guaranteed success when it happens. But in 19, we initiated the study, did the system design, and we have put together budgetary pricing. There will be two major subcontracts. One is the drilling contractor. It's going to be a 65-foot deep storage well, 5-foot in diameter, with the turbine pumps and the shelter over those turbine pumps. Now, since we're changing the way we derive water from the lake, we have to get approval from the Corps to change that interface. We briefed the Army Corps of Engineers on the 21st of August on this, our system design. They have looked at the key features and benefits of the system. They fully support the effort that we're doing. Next week, we will have out a formal request to the Corps to approve our new interface to the lake. What we will do is at the bottom of this well, we will bore laterally to the lake. The depth of that bore will be at about 515 feet altitude, so you can understand. Right now, the Brazos River Authority owns water from 533 feet altitude down to 520. So we'll be pulling at 515, and that's really water the Corps itself controls. So anything above 533 in the flood also is Corps responsibility. So it goes away from the Brazos River. So what we will have is a system that can pump water not limited by environmental factors of the lake and not limited by the politics between two organizations that rent water from each other at different levels. So I think that would be a significant improvement. The storage well, the location for it, the proposed location is right behind the hotel. It will be on White Bluff property. That will be advantageous for us in the construction, as long as we meet all the interface standards for the lake. We're going to be pretty well unfettered to go do our construction on our end without worrying about land we're drilling. As I said, there are some supply chain requirements. We have two major subcontracts that are going to be competitive, by the way. It's a business where drillers have. We are targeting, however, fiscal year 2021 for final approval and completion of the project. Thank you.
Moving right along to the last item on the agenda, I want to apologize for the lack of comic relief this year that you're going to experience from our county commissioner. That was a joke. He is not here today, but we are blessed to have in his place former county commissioner Danny Boddicker, who will come up here because he's not going to ever run for re-election again. I promise you he's going to have very brief remarks on behalf of me.
Thank you. The best thing I can start off with, I talked to Commissioners Court. They passed the current effective tax rate. They're going to reduce it 2 cents per $100 of value. So don't spend all that money in the same place. Andy apologizes for not being here. He's in Colorado with celebrating his grandmother's 80th birthday. He did want me to convey that all you have to do is look north of us. There's a lot of construction and building. There are 3 subdivisions that are going in. They've already submitted their plats. 2 of the subdivisions have already sold all their property. So what does that equate to? Our property values are all going up. So Hill County is experiencing significant growth, which will also bid well for you as well, or all of us and our property owners. The other thing that about 3 or 4 years ago, they suffered a lot of damage on county roads, and FEMA has granted them close to $8 million for
reimbursement, and they're in the process of trying to secure that money. About 83% of the roads have been brought back up to its county standards. So just an idea of what's going on in the county. And you also might know that if White Bluff was an incorporated city, it'd be the biggest city in Hill County. So it's significant. So thank you. If you have any questions, call Andy, don't call me.
Wow. Thank you, Danny. We're going to open for open forum now. As a reminder, there are 2 microphones. Where's the secretary? Behind, okay, behind there. Okay, I got you. You're welcome to come to the microphones, identify yourself, identify your property address. Please verify that at that property address that your name is on the title. We'll make sure that you're a property owner. Okay, does anyone have any comments, suggestions, questions in the open forum? Please come forward.
I'll run up there,
Take your time.
but I'm walking. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Tricia Shelton. I live next door to the Old Course Clubhouse, and it has been exciting to live there and see everything that is going on. So thank you, all of you board members, for helping to get us back there. We know we all want everything now.
Address.
Oh, 15002 Golf Drive, next door to the Old Course Clubhouse. So thank you all for what you've done. I wanted to just mention a couple of things. One, thank you to the board for giving us the go-ahead. For those of us who are technologically non-inspired, to go look up people's addresses on the Associo website, you all gave us the go-ahead so we could print and make our own directory to have in our hand, and we love it. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Brenda and Bill for seeing me frequently as I went in there to pick up the sheets that people filled out. We have about 50% of the people that have participated and are in our directory, but that's only 50%. Since that time, we've had a lot of new people that have come in who probably don't even know we have a directory that you can hold in your hand with 11-point type. We can all read. So this is your opportunity. We're not going to update this every month. We'll probably update it a couple of times a year, but this is the time now. For those of you that have the directory, there is a form in the back for you to make changes and updates. For those of you that are new, I'm not going to give you a piece of paper, but I'm going to tell you that any change or new person who wants to be in the directory, please use an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, because that's how we file it. Don't send me a little piece of paper and say, here, Trish, here's my change. Actually, I need it printed out, and we will begin making changes and adding to that. But it's really nice to see the participation and how much everybody really appreciate. I've got lots of thanks, and I want to thank Linda Geary, because we really proved that. And we know we've made mistakes, and we know that you have changes. This is your time to start sending that in. Brenda has been so sweet up there that you can mail it to me, or you can take a sheet of paper up to the POA office, and she has a lovely little folder she keeps there, and I go by and pick them up. So this is your time to participate in the directory, and I hope that you will, because it's very useful. So thank you all very much for that. And I wanted to mention a couple of things that I haven't heard, but that I think all of us are affected here in White Bluff. Number one, Hill County has worked very hard to remove any encumbrances for us voting. Early voting is October 13th through the 30th. They have changed the location to the Hill County Annex on Franklin Street, to the courthouse annex on Franklin Street. That's very recent. The reason they changed that is because they are now continuing the free coronavirus testing at the Hill County Fairgrounds. That's why we're not having the voting at the fairgrounds. But the Hill County Courthouse Annex is going to leave lots of space for you to go and vote with the social distancing that we need. So certainly I would encourage you to take that wonderful opportunity of 3 weeks of early voting, 8 to 5 every day. For those of you who can't make it to 8 to 5 on 2 days, October 14th and October 21st, those are Wednesdays. They're open until 8 p.m. So please go vote in person. If you can go to Brookshire's, if you can go to Lowe's, surely you can go vote. We hope that you will do that. Thank you for that.
Dates again are October 13th.
October 13th through 30th, early voting at the Hill County Courthouse Annex on Franklin Street. I'm sorry I don't have the exact address for
It's on
that.
the corner of Franklin and Church.
Okay, Franklin and Church. And the 2 days, 2 Wednesdays, the first 2 Wednesdays is open until 8 p.m. So I just wanted to say that. The other thing I wanted to tell you about, of course I know we're fighting coronavirus, but we are also now fighting the flu. Please, I encourage everyone, please go get a flu shot. They're available now. You can get them at your pharmacy, talk to your doctor. For those of you who are able and your doctor says it's fine, please go get a flu shot, because we don't want you getting the flu, we don't want you getting COVID. They are not the same and they're treated differently. And this is going to be, if you are inoculated, or the vaccine covers 4 flus. So please go and get your flu shot, because it's really, really important this year, unless you have a reason not to. So working for Hill Regional Hospital, I kind of wanted to bring that little health thing up, and we appreciate that. So there are also exciting things happening at Hill Regional. We have a lot of new doctors. We have 10 new doctors that are now coming to Hillsborough and looking at you at the hospital. So take a look at that and vote and get your shot, and send in any changes and move people to be in the directory. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tricia. Appreciate it. One more time, as a reminder, between the 13th and the 30th, be sure if you're voting for the right person to vote early and often. Anyone else would like to come forward and address the board and the group here?
My name is Larry Klein. I live at 16043 Faircrest Drive.
So let's start over. Back there. Go ahead, start over, please.
My name is Larry Klein. I guess I'm listed as Lawrence, but my friends call me Larry, and I consider the board my friends, so you can call me Larry. I also own the lot next door, me and my wife, 16042. I bought that house 5 years ago. I just retired a year and a half ago, and finally moved to White Bluff. So I may be way behind on a lot of things. But the committee rules that we inherited from Double Diamond, I see a lot of things in those rules that favor Double Diamond and not the property owners. I was just wondering if there's a rules committee or something to that effect that may be in the works to change some of these inequalities. That's number one. The second comment that I have is, for 5 years I've seen these roads get real bad. And I can't imagine what they're going to be in another 5 years. Are we escrowing any funds for this? Because I imagine it's going to be a major expenditure. I would hope that in 5 years, all of a sudden somebody says, well, we got to charge every property owner thousands and thousands of dollars in extra fee to cover this. are we planning for that now? Because it may be my ignorance, but I think that's going to be a major, major cost. That is, you know, if we don't plan for it now, it's going to bite us.
Okay, thank you very much. Very briefly, your first question regarding rules. The response there is twofold. Number one, we have to have declarancy, which requires a 2/3 vote of all property owners. So pick a number, 4,500 property owners. One of the comments that I made in my opening remarks, was that if we have a domino or two fall, which is going to happen very quickly, we feel very confident that we can reach that level of participation relative to getting declarancy for the POA. So we can make our own rules, change what we want to. One of the things I asked our association attorney was, are we allowed to make rules by board approval of the whatever resolution we passed of making the new rule? And his response was, yes, we can. This board can make new rules as long as they're not in conflict with the covenants and rules that are there, which we have done. John Bass, if he is reelected, will continue to head up the effort, as he has in the past, on getting declarancy and getting sufficient things for declarancy. Regarding roads, yes, we agree with you. We have a $13 million problem. We are very well aware of that. Again, in my comments, I pointed out that this roads is part of the capital expenditures that we are addressing in our capital expense budget. It is not something that's just lying by the wayside, sitting around not being attended to. We do not have specific, in our reserve system that we've set up there, not specific things that we're setting up those reserves for, but as Jeff pointed out, $1.3 million that we got right now, $1.3 million. So we're doing everything that we can, considering the funds and the collectability that we have, to address those issues. And roads, we understand, everyone understands that is high priority.
How many miles?
62 miles of roads, by the way. 62 miles of roads. So we paid for an engineering study under the leadership of Milton Bergman a couple of years ago, $13.2 million. Yes, we're planning for it. Bill?
Mayor, if I could add, that you have put in almost $100,000 for emergency repair based on something happening in that budget.
Bill just said that I have put in $100,000 in temporary repairs. It came out of our rebate. No, I'm kidding. The board does. We're trying to keep up as much as we can with correcting problems that are of significance relative to road repairs. But we know we got to replace them all. We got to replace them all, and we can assure you we're planning for that. Other comments, please come to the microphone. Yes, sir.
My name is Jim Schrader. I live at 12004 Trailwood Drive. I've lived here since '06.
You see that, Chris?
12004 Trailwood Drive.
Okay.
What I want to say is, or what I want to ask the board to consider, is purely personal. There is on Overlook Drive, there's a driveway that needs to be removed or fenced off. I'm at the point where I lost a son. Went off the cliff. I want the board to consider doing something, and I would like to speak privately with whoever's in charge at some point, because I'll go rent the equipment and I'll take the 6-foot driveway out. Because my son and his friend aren't the only ones that do what happened that day down there. The only other thing I would like to say is, having lived here since '06, which is a lot, longer than what I've talked to a lot of people here, y'all are different, but you're not different. The board seems to be more open now than it was before. I hope it continues to stay that way because I like living here. agreement with you that some of the rules need to be changed, need to be lightened up. There's some that need to be more restricted. Saying that, this is a beautiful place to live. But I'd like to keep it that way. I used to be more versed on what the rules were, and I would make more comments. But the one thing I would like to say is just care for each other. That's all. Thank you.
Our hearts go out to you. I will make a personal commitment to you that we will look into what needs to be done to address that problem over there. But our thought process from the time that the house fell in was that it was a massive safety issue to remove the remainder of that slab. From what you're telling me, it may not be.
Well, the slab isn't the issue.
It's the driveway.
The boys, and I don't know if anybody else has teenagers, and I can talk loud enough so everybody can hear me. What they would do is they go down that driveway and they power slide that golf cart or whatever they have. I've seen four-wheelers down there. You live on Overlook Drive. You've seen it. You've probably seen it 1,000 times. If you take out 6-footed driveway, 4-footed driveway even maybe, that puts enough of a dirt in there that they can't do it.
Okay. Bill, would you look into that? Or we'll have Mr. Finney take a look at that. Okay, thank you.
I will also state, I see people going up and down Overlook Drive that go out there specifically to park right there and look at the lake.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing. I mean,
You know.
It's like this. That's a beautiful place. I've been to that point 100 times over the last, however long I've lived here. And I took Jason, that was his name, to before when the house was there, between those two houses, we used to go sit there and watch the lake. There's nothing wrong with that. But when the house fell in, it made it a dangerous situation. I'm not
We'll look into it. Okay?
I got it.
And our heart goes to you. Anyone else like to come in the open forum? Comments, questions? Someone help bring the mic down, please. Bill, oh, you got it.
It doesn't like the rock.
Georgiana Johansson. The address is 36067 Cedar Ridge Drive. It's the new modern house on the hill. Since I'm handicapped, I'm very aware of issues around White Bluff that are not been looked into as being handicap accessible. And I don't know if there's anybody on the board that would do that. I'm willing to assist in helping anything with it. But, I mean, like last year when I came here, Mulligan's did not even have a rail in the handicap bathroom. All it was a larger stall. It made it impossible for me with only one leg to stand up. And there's not a swimming pool that's out in the general population here that has a lift chair. I would like to recommend a lift chair put in Rustic Pool, because that's the one that's level, that you can get to, that doesn't have these step downs. And and then there was a parking place or two that I had gone up on the hill that was marked as handicap, and it wasn't level. And if you're ever in a wheelchair and you're on an unlevel surface, the chair rolls. So anyway, I would just like to request that those kind of things be looked at and do what is needed, and I'm willing to assist or advise or whatever, because I'm very aware. And a lot of times, until you're aware of those things, because you have family members or you or somebody else, you don't even notice.
Georgiana, would you make a list of the locations that you know of that are a problem?
Okay?
And get into Bill Finney.
Bill?
In the POA office, in the admin office.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, just so you're aware, this would be something that management would address, and then they would bring their recommendations to the board. If there's funding involved in that, then that's what we would get involved in. That would be the best avenue to go.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay. Anyone else? Please feel free to come forward.
Ron Quiggin, live at 27046 Stonewood Drive. And I just have one little question. I'm wondering if you're comfortable sharing anything, or if there is any update with the Flatiron organization and their purchase of Mike Ford's remaining asset share on our...
Gee, thanks for that question, Robert. Yeah, it's a good question. I speak with Flatiron people once to twice a week. Okay, was it yesterday? Yeah, I spoke to them this week. I know you're tired of hearing this, but I genuinely believe that we are very close to this transpiring. They were experiencing, quite frankly, the same situation that we experienced during acquisition, survey problems, title problems, et cetera, et cetera. It's a massive thing, especially when you're dealing with 750-ish individual lots, as well as the properties that they're doing. If and when it happens, there will be an official press release for it. There will be an announcement to the community here that they're very anxious to get in here. The billboards are back up on the Central Expressway and other places in Dallas. They'll be having a full-time salesperson in the sales office. They will address the condominiums that they're acquiring with this. So the plans are all set there, but I don't. All I know is from talking to them yesterday or the day before, we're that close. Okay, that close. It'll be a pleasure to announce that, I can assure you. Thank you, Ron. Other questions, comments, suggestions? Please come forward.
Melody Martinez, 32002 Dove Trail. Just an update on the burnt house across the street from me.
Mr. Manders, can you give us an update?
Every year, I get that close to getting away.
Come on, Joe, you know somebody was gonna ask it.
Take a deep breath, Joe.
I have good news and not so good news about that. On August 10th, Judge Lee Harris of the 66 JDC here in Hillsborough had a summary judgment motion filed by our attorneys, granted the summary judgment motion in our behalf, rendering for the POA a monetary judgment of, I don't have it exactly, but about $183,000 judgment in our favor, for consisting of the violation and fines, and an additional, I want to say $22,000 in attorney's fees that we are obligated to pay our attorneys. Now, right after that, the defendant, the Haight Family LLC, which is a legal entity which owns that house on Ash Drive, trial in Judge Harris's court. I was told by our attorneys that we had a hearing on that a week or so back, and Judge Harris has taken that motion under advisement. My inclination is to believe he will deny that motion. If he does, then the defendants have a right to file an appeal on Judge Harris's ruling of the summary judgment motion. But until I get a ruling on a motion for new trial, I don't know. Then the appeal period starts. I believe it's about 30 days, and I don't know what the defendants might do in that regard. In the meantime, talking with our attorneys about this, we decided to file what is known as an abstract of judgment, which is basically a summary form of the judgment that was rendered by Judge Harris. And we're filing that in the various counties where the defendants may own property, because they were ordered by the judge to pay the judgment within 30 days. Don't think they're going to do that, okay, because we were willing to settle this case for $20,000 over the last 2 years, and they didn't do that. So I don't think they're going to be waltzing in with $200,000 in judgment in the near future. They're going to continue to resist it until they run out of legal options. So we're taking abstracts of judgment. We're going to file that in Ellis County, Hill County, and anywhere else we can find that this Haight Family LLC may own assets that we can seize to satisfy our judgment. That's basically where I am right now. Yeah, well, they're accumulating an additional $200 a day in fine on the property. We're also, I didn't fail to tell you that we're having a legal search done right now on the lien status of the Ash property itself, because we can foreclose on that property and seize that. Don't know how much that would bring. I don't think it's going to bring $200,000 in judgment value, but it'll bring some asset. And we can force that to be sold at share of sale, and whatever proceeds would go to satisfy our lien. We have to ascertain whether there are any other monetary liens on that property that would be superior to ours, such as if they had financed that property through a bank or other institution, and that institution would take a mortgage on the property. Well, that lien would be superior to ours. Don't know the answer to that yet. Waiting to hear from our attorney. That's all I know. Follow up.
Thank you, Jim. This is, I know, been extremely frustrating to those who frequent that path down Ash Drive. That's where we get our mail, and I understand every time I look at it, it's frustration, but it's the legal system, is all I can tell you. We were bound by the legal system. Everything that we've done has been on time, in accordance with the process that we had to go through with this. You can't just go with a shotgun and somebody said, come over here and clean this thing up. Okay, it's just not the way it works. But we've had very good representation. We're following the process, which is the reason we're getting positive renderings and rulings from the court. And Melody, I can assure you, nobody likes to look at it any worse than anybody else than you do. Okay, so we're looking at it. Anyone else open forum? If not, I will make one final comment before Jim gives election results. Before election results, if you come up with a question, again, if you come up with a suggestion, if you come up with something you want to talk to, again, go directly to your board or go directly to management. That's what we're here for. We're very open and receptive to discussing virtually anything with you. I get numerous emails every day, and I have a commitment that I try to respond to them within 1 day of receipt, and every board member is like that. So please come directly to us. We're more than happy to communicate with you. I'll now turn it over to Jim Fletcher for election results.
I verified with our CPA and auditor. Sam Timothy. We do have election results, and in the interest of transparency, I have asked Mr. Timothy to present those results.
Thank you. Okay, your newly elected board has been elected. You had a quorum of 46.6%. Your requirement was 25%. You have elected John Bass with 1,602 votes, Mike Ellis with 1,674, and Jerry Mayer with 2,229. So that's your elected ones. Kathy Fleming had 1,250, and Linda Turner 1,023. Results, and have a good day.
Thank you, Sam. Does anyone have any other business to come before this board at this meeting? We will stand adjourned at 1:07.
Whether I get up or not.